Warrior Lore. Chapter 28:17. Translator. H2 Mr. Dad 1. Du Xiaolin clapped his hands excitedly and danced with joy. I told you, Dad's strength is definitely stronger than all of them combined. Du Xiaohuang nodded her head like a chick pecking at rice. Uncle Xiaofu is really strong. One day, I will be as strong as him. Du Xiaoba's eyes shone brightly. Looking at the purple-robed figure in the sky, a sense of pride rose in his heart. Of all the people present, these three little fellows had the most confidence in Du Xiaofu. They had followed their father, Uncle Xiaofu, for so many years and had witnessed too many miracles. It was as if nothing could truly baffle him. Thus, when they saw the final result, although the three little fellows were elated, they did not show any shock. It was as if everything was within their expectations. Ouyang Shuang, on the other hand, could only rub her smooth forehead helplessly. Back then, when they came to the 33 heavens, Du Xiaofu had originally planned to only bring little Xingxing and Du Xiaoyao out of the divine martial world. However, under her strong request, they were brought along with a few other little fellows. At that time, the gap between their strength was already not small. Now, this gap was even more terrifying. This made Ouyang Shuang feel somewhat helpless. She did not know how to quickly fill this gap and not fall too far behind. This boy is indeed extraordinary. On the other side, Chu Daoju also smiled. Looking at Du Xiaofu, he nodded repeatedly. His future achievements will definitely surpass ours and step into the meditative realm. Long San also nodded, his eyes shining brightly as he spoke seriously. Beside them, Yu Yuqian's old face was smiling like a flower. He was in high spirits. This old man's disciple will definitely not be an ordinary person. He stroked his beard. His old heart was comforted, and his heart was incomparably happy. Du Xiaofu's victory, as his master, he naturally felt proud. What's more, wasn't this the result that they all wanted? Outside the arena, besides Chu Daoju, Ling Feng, Long San, Yu Yuqian, and the others, the people from the various major powers of the Scandinavian kingdom were all sighing with emotion at this moment. Who would have thought that Du Xiaofu would actually win? This guy is too scary. He's almost invincible in the same realm. I suspect that even if a cultivator at the true severing perfection stage fought with him, they would also be beaten down very quickly. His strength is second to none even among the super forces of the 33 heavens. The name Du Xiaofu might spread throughout the entire transcendent Chang Rong heaven in the future. His name has spread throughout the entire supreme Chang Rong heaven. Perhaps one day, his legend will spread throughout the 33 heavens. Everyone was discussing fervently, and their gazes were all focused on the purple-robed young man standing tall in the sky. When Du Xiaofu had claimed first place at the beginning, no one had dared to believe that he could really win against the combined attacks of over 100 people. This was not something that an ordinary person could do. However, the current result had surprised everyone. Ah, our nomological true weapon is gone. Suddenly, someone howled. His voice was filled with endless grief, and it caused a roar of laughter. Only a very small number of people were able to participate in the final battle. Previously, when Divine General Zi Hong had announced the rules of the competition and their own disciples had entered the final round, they had all thought that the nomological true weapon was already in the bag. However, now that the cooked duck had flown away, each and every one of them felt extremely melancholy. It was as if a piece of flesh had been dug out from their hearts. I announced that Du Xiaofu is the winner of the final battle. At this moment, Divine General Zi Hong flew up again and stood in the sky as he announced in a clear voice. As his voice fell, the arena quickly quieted down. The over 100 young disciples below all looked up at the sky. Their gazes were filled with emotion and reverence as they looked at the purple-robed young man. I wonder what the final reward will be. I'm afraid that the reward will be extremely terrifying. I'm really looking forward to it. Based on my estimation, it will be at least at the level of an upper-grade nomological true weapon, or a treasure of similar value. It has been hidden until now, so it definitely won't be bad. One thing is for sure, its value should be more frightening than 100 elementary nomological true weapons added together. Everyone's gaze turned towards Yuqing Divine Emperor at the same time. They wanted to see what the final reward would be. Senior brother, senior brother. Du Xiaofu also rushed down from the sky. With a swoosh, he arrived in front of Yu Taiyin. He squinted his eyes and looked at him with a smile. Seeing this scene, Chu Daoju, Long San, Ling Feng, and the others all smiled bitterly. Du Xiaofu really did not care about his image for the sake of the treasure. Don't be in such a hurry. Yu Taiyin glanced at Du Xiaofu and stood up. He slowly took 2 steps forward and looked around. He raised his voice and said to all the forces present, "Today, I invited all of you here to let all the outstanding disciples in the Holy Kingdom compete fairly. No matter who it is, as long as they win the final challenge, they will be able to obtain the greatest reward." As Yu Taiyin spoke, the entire Divine Palace Square was silent. No one made a sound. They all knew that this was the rule that was agreed upon earlier. The person who won first place had to challenge the other top 100 disciples by himself. Furthermore, he would only be able to obtain the final reward if he won. Everything was very fair. In order to make the remaining disciples fight with all their might, Yu Taiyin even offered the great temptation of 100 nomological true weapons to motivate the disciples to fight with all their might. Therefore, at this moment, everyone present pricked up their ears. They wanted to hear what the Divine Emperor would say and what the greatest reward was. As the Yuqing Divine Emperor spoke, he paused and looked around. Then, he continued, Du Xiaofu claimed first place. No one objected to this. In the end, he defeated everyone. Therefore, the greatest reward naturally belongs to him. At this point, countless people began to feel nervous. They felt their hearts begin to race uncontrollably. It was not just the people from the various forces. Even the 3 divine generals and some of the higher-ups of the Holy Kingdom felt the same way. Everyone held their breaths and quietly listened to Yu Taiyan's words. They wanted to hear the final result. Seeing this, Yu Taiyan's eyes shone brightly. He said loudly, "I declare that from today onwards, Du Xiaofu is the new divine emperor of the Yuqing Divine Kingdom." As soon as these words came out, it was like a sudden clap of thunder that exploded between heaven and earth. What followed was even more silence, to the point that one could hear a pin drop. Everyone was dumbfounded. Their eyeballs almost popped out of their sockets. After a long while, someone rubbed his ears in disbelief. Then, he looked at the person next to him, wanting to confirm if he had heard wrongly. After a series of confirmations, they finally realized that everything they had just heard was real and not an illusion. In an instant, the huge square exploded into an unprecedented uproar. Du Xiaofu? The next divine emperor? Did I really hear it wrong? How can this be? Could this be the final reward? The divine emperor is in his prime. Why is he stepping down now and passing the throne to Du Xiaofu? What is going on? Everyone was shocked beyond words. No one expected the Yuqing Divine Emperor to make such a decision. At this point, no one cared whether this was the greatest reward or not. They only wanted to know what was going on. Why did their Divine Emperor, who was in his prime, suddenly pass the throne to someone else? And it was not even a member of the imperial family. In the crowd, Yu Qingyin, Yu Chengyao, Yu Chengxi and the other princes and princesses were all speechless. Divine General Zihong He Mengchang, Divine General Yunling Duan Baichuan, and Divine General Di Wu Hua Yuankuan were no exception. They were all stunned and could not say a word. Dad is going to be the Divine Emperor. I'm not dreaming, right? Behind Chu Daoju and the others, little Qilin rubbed his eyes hard. His face was filled with disbelief. What is going on? I'm feeling dizzy. Du Xiaohuang's eyes were also blinking. She looked back and forth between Yu Taiyin and Du Xiaofu. Looks like we are going to have a foundation in the 33 heavens soon. Du Xiaoba smacked his lips and said. Beside the 3 little fellows, Ouyang Shuang's beautiful face was filled with indescribable shock. Just like the 3 little fellows, she felt a little dizzy. The position of Divine Emperor is going to be passed to me? Du Xiaofu was also dumbfounded. He stood rooted to the spot beside Yu Taiyin and stared blankly at his back. The questions in his heart were no less than anyone else's. Yu Taiyin's words had caught him completely off guard. It was too sudden. At this moment, Du Xiaofu's heart was the same as everyone else's. He felt extremely baffled and confused. You didn't hear wrong. The position of Divine Emperor Yu Qing will be taken over by Du Xiaofu from today onwards. The succession ceremony will be held on another day. In the face of everyone's endless questions, Yu Taiyin did not explain anything. He only repeated his words. After he finished speaking, he turned to Du Xiaofu, the 3 divine generals, and the 7 princes and princesses and said, "Follow me." Then, Yu Taiyin led Du Xiaofu, Yu Qingyin, Yu Chengyao, He Mengchong, Duan Baichuan and the others and disappeared from the spot. Yu Yuqian, Chu Daoju, Ling Feng, Long San and the others also left. Apart from them, He Jixin, Duan Yizong, He Jibai, Hua Youguang and the other high-ranking disciples of the Divine Kingdom were also summoned. Only the people from the various forces of the Divine Kingdom were left. None of them had recovered from the great shock until now. The people discussed the Divine Emperor's decision non-stop. This was definitely a major piece of news that was enough to shake the entire Divine Kingdom. Everyone knew that the Yu Qing Divine Kingdom was at the peak of its power, and the Divine Emperor was at the prime of his life. Back then, the 7 divine generals' manners in the Juling Sanctuary had plotted a rebellion, but they had been crushed by thousands of immortal realm experts. The Divine Kingdom's strength was unprecedented. Even if they were to go up against some of the stronger sanctuaries, they would not lose out at all. As such, not only could they compete with the other factions in the transcendent Changrong sky, they could even expand their territory. However, it was under such circumstances that the Divine Emperor was going to abdicate and pass the throne to Du Xiaofu. This surprised everyone. However, when everyone was talking about it, they were surprised. But no one raised any questions about it. The Divine Kingdom's factions were built by the Divine Emperor himself. He had the right to make any decisions. As a subordinate faction, they only needed to follow his orders. They were only thinking that Du Xiaofu was only at the true severing stage. Did he have the ability to take on such a heavy responsibility? Amidst the heated discussion, the experts of the Divine Kingdom stepped forward and began to arrange for the people from the various factions to leave the square and settle down in the Divine Palace or Divine City. On the other side, Yu Taiyin, Yu Yuqian, Chu Daoju, Du Xiaofu, He Mengchong, Yu Yaoyin, Yu Chengyao, He Jixin and the others gathered in a large hall and took their seats. Yu Taiyin sat on the main seat and looked down at the people below. He smiled and said, "I know that you have many questions in your hearts. Now, if you have anything to say, just say it." Before the others could make a move, Du Xiaofu was the first to stand out and say, "Senior brother Yu, you're not joking, right? The position of Divine Emperor, how can I?" Du Xiaofu understood that although his current strength was not bad, it was absolutely impossible for him to support the position of Divine Emperor in a Divine Kingdom. It should be known that the Divine Emperor of the First Divine Kingdom in the transcendent Changrong Heaven was at the Immortal Realm, and they were all very strong. For example, Yu Taiyin was an expert at the 9th sky of Immortal Realm. Du Xiaofu asked himself, although he could run amok among the younger generation, if he were to face such an expert, he would not be able to resist at all. He would only be trampled. However, before he could finish, Yu Taiyin waved his hand and interrupted him. He said, "Junior brother Du, don't belittle yourself. Do you think I would joke about this matter with you? The reason I invited so many factions to the Divine Palace was to let you prove your strength. And things are indeed as I expected. You did not disappoint me. Perhaps you want to say that with your current realm, you are not qualified to be the Divine Emperor of a Divine Kingdom, but I believe that it won't be long before you reach the Immortal Realm." Du Xiaofu opened his mouth and wanted to say something, but Yu Taiyin waved his hand again. "You already know that we come from a place called the Lingwu world in the 3,000 universes. The reason I created the Yu Qing Divine Kingdom in the Supreme Changrong Heaven was not to create a powerful force. It was just a way for me to train myself. Now, this kind of training has lost its meaning to me. However, I built the Divine Kingdom with my own hands, so I can't leave it alone. I have to find someone to pass it on." As Yu Taiyin spoke, he suddenly shifted his gaze to Yu Qingyan, Yu Chengyao, Yu Chengxi, and the other princes and princesses. As for Cheng Yin, Cheng Yao, Cheng Shi, and the others, although they aren't weak and are much older than you, their cultivations are still far too lacking in comparison. You, on the other hand, have been through great trials and tribulations in the divine martial world. You have grown at an incomparable speed, far surpassing your peers. Therefore, no one is more suitable for the position of divine emperor than you. And I am very relieved to hand all of this over to you. After Yu Taiyin finished speaking, everyone in the hall fell silent. Apart from Yu Yuqian, Yu Taiyin, Chu Daoju, and a few others, the others did not know much about Du Xiaofu's past. However, they all understood what Yu Taiyin meant. As for Du Xiaofu himself, he also agreed with his words. He was not a frivolous person, but he would not belittle himself either. He knew his own weight. To a certain extent, he had experienced the great calamity of the devil religion in the divine martial world. He had cultivated for decades and died 3 times, but he had also established a vast, desolate divine kingdom. During this process, his temperament had grown to a height that many people could not hope to reach. Yu Chengyin, Yu Chengyao, and the others, who were born blessed by the heavens, could not compare to him. From this point of view, Du Xiaofu was indeed more suitable for the position of divine emperor than any of them. However, Du Xiaofu still felt a little strange. After all, the imperial family had always been of the same origin. The imperial power would not be easily given to an outsider. For example, in the ancient desolate continent, the human race's divine temple was supported by several great families. Therefore, the human emperor's position was rotated and fought for by themselves. As if seeing through Du Xiaofu's thoughts, Yu Yuqian stood up from his seat before Yu Taiyin could speak. He walked to Du Xiaofu's side and patted him on the shoulder, saying, "Good disciple, everything we've done today is a decision we've made decades ago, right after you fought the 7 divine generals' mansions and the extreme spirit Holy Land in the Chaos Dimension. We originally planned to do all of this after the Origin space ended. However, at that time, you were in seclusion in the Qian Su Jinghua heaven. After you came back, your cultivation base became so terrifying. You're not far from the immortal realm. Therefore, we took advantage of the time before the opening of the Divine Devil battlefield to finish all of this." "Father, you're right." At this time, Yu Taihua spoke again. "Everyone is relieved to leave all of this to you. You don't need to feel burdened. In the Divine Devil battlefield, with the identity of Divine Emperor, you can better lead all the other forces of the Divine Kingdom." "Haha, boy, the position of Divine Emperor is taken by you. You have to shoulder the heavy responsibility of the entire Yuqing Divine Kingdom. No accidents can happen in your hands." Chu Daoju suddenly laughed and continued. "If you don't want to continue as the Divine Emperor and there are more suitable people, such as Qingyin, Qingyao, Chengxi, and the others, you can give the throne back. However, during this period, you can do whatever you want. I believe you can make this divine kingdom even more glorious." Chapter 28:18. Chu Daoju's words made Yu Yuqian, Yu Taiyin, Long San, Ling Feng, and the others nod. Just as he said, Du Xiaofu taking over the throne was the result of everyone's discussion. When Yu Taiyin established the Yuqing Divine Kingdom, it was to train himself more. But now, the effect of this training was very small. His cultivation had reached the 9th level of the immortal realm a long time ago. He was only slightly weaker than Chu Daoju. So now, he wanted to find a different path of cultivation. He didn't want to rely on pure life and death battles to strengthen himself. When one's cultivation reached a certain level, it wasn't just simple battles that could increase one's cultivation. Instead, one needed to comprehend, and this kind of comprehension was more about experiencing the world and nature. In addition, there was also the cultivator himself. "Is that so?" Du Xiaofu muttered and fell into deep thought. Chu Daoju's words made sense. When the situation stabilized and Yu Qingyin, Yu Chengyao, and the others reached the immortal realm, he could definitely give back the throne. On the other hand, Du Xiaofu really did need a force of his own to develop his foundation in the 33 heavens. Now, there was a large group of people in Xian Wu world waiting for him to go back and bring them to the 33 heavens to train together. He couldn't let his family and friends be like him in the past. After coming to a foreign place, they didn't even have a place to stay. If he had control of the Yuqing divine kingdom, it would be much easier to arrange everything. Only now did Du Xiaofu remember that when Yu Yuqian took him in as a disciple, he said he would give him a big gift. But he didn't expect this gift to be so great. So no matter how much he thought about it, he couldn't make up his mind. There are no outsiders here. I'll call you Martial Uncle Du. Seeing that Du Xiaofu was still a little hesitant, Yu Qingyan gently walked forward, looked at Du Xiaofu, and said with a faint smile, Imperial Father and the several martial uncles are right. With the strength of the 7 of us siblings, we are indeed unable to properly control the divine kingdom and inherit the throne. And as grandfather's disciple, you're not an outsider. You're more suitable than any of us to inherit the throne. As the divine kingdom's crown prince, he naturally understood why the imperial ancestor and father made such a decision. Imperial father had been at a bottleneck for many years. If he wanted to seek a greater breakthrough, as his children, they had no reason to stop him. Furthermore, Yu Qingyan could also see just how much trust his grandfather and father had in Du Xiaofu. For them to hand over the divine kingdom to him made them feel at ease. Chengyao also, I think this is suitable. Martial Uncle Du, you don't need Dawn. Yu Chengyao chuckled and blinked at Du Xiaofu inexplicably, as if a bright and beautiful spring had just bloomed. Eldest brother and second sister are right. The Yuqing divine kingdom isn't that important to us. If father had wanted to establish it, there wouldn't be 36 sacred lands and 72 divine kingdoms. Yu Chengxi also said. To Yu Taiyan, establishing the Yuqing divine kingdom was really just a training exercise. With the strength of the faction behind them, if they really wanted to expand their territory, the entire Changrong heaven would have changed. Because of this, the 7 princes and princesses were shocked and confused by their father's sudden decision. However, they didn't show any signs of rejection. They didn't think much of the Yuqing divine kingdom. But to Du Xiaofu, all of this was a great gift. Yes, Brother Du. Martial Uncle Du, just agree to father and the others. The 7 of us won't have any objections. Yu Chengliang stepped forward and said to Du Xiaofu. Among the 7 princes and princesses, he was the closest to Du Xiaofu. He also knew the temperament of his brothers. Actually, with Martial Uncle Du's ability, it won't be difficult for you to establish another divine kingdom in the future. But it just so happens that the Yuqing divine kingdom needs someone to inherit the throne. You're the most suitable. Yu Qingyan slowly walked to Du Xiaofu's side, his tone sincere as he spoke. After the previous battle, he could clearly feel how terrifying Du Xiaofu's strength was. One had to know that this fellow had only cultivated for less than 200 years and had already grown to such a level. If he was given a few more 100 years, no one could predict what heights he would reach. How difficult would it be for such a genius to conquer a divine kingdom in the future? All right, since everyone says so, it would be impolite for me to refuse. Du Xiaofu thought for a moment again, then raised his eyes and nodded very straightforwardly. Since things had already come to this point, if he continued to hesitate, it would be too petty of him. A divine kingdom was a great temptation to him. At least it would save him a lot of energy to go to war. It would also allow the many beings in the divine battle world to have a place to settle down in the 33 heavens. Haha, good. In a few days, we'll hold the coronation ceremony for you. Yu Taiyan laughed out loud and nodded. The others, such as Yu Yuqian, Chu Daoju, Ling Feng, and Long San, also showed gratified expressions. Yu Qingyan, Yu Chengyao, Yu Chengliang, and He Zhibai all started to laugh. A true severing stage cultivator inheriting the throne. This was probably the first time in the Changrong heaven that something like this had happened. No divine kingdom would pass the throne to a young boy. That's right. If Du Xiaofu's age was calculated, he could only be considered a young boy in the 33 heavens. But senior brother Yu. While everyone was still rejoicing, Du Xiaofu suddenly rubbed the back of his head and said, Senior brother Yu, you can go and seek a higher realm, but the other powerhouses of the divine kingdom can't leave. Otherwise, I won't even know the borders of such a vast territory. He blinked and looked at the people around him. If he Mingchong, Duan Baichuan, Hua Yuan Kuan, and the other immortal powerhouses of the divine kingdom also resigned after Yu Taiyan's abdication, then he would be dumbfounded. After all, it was impossible for him, Yu Chengliang, He Jibai, and the others to hold up a divine kingdom. As a powerful force in the Changrong heaven, it was impossible for it not to have an immortal powerhouse. However, Yu Taiyin had already thought about this. He laughed again and said, "Don't worry, none of the higher-ups of the divine kingdom will move. Everything will be the same as before. It's just that the divine king has changed. You don't have to worry about how many things you need to do. There will be people in charge of everything. Unless, one day, you want to expand your territory and conquer more lands." He looked at Du Xiaofu with a smile. In fact, Du Xiaofu didn't need to put in too much effort to inherit the position of divine king. However, from now on, the development of the Yuqing divine kingdom would be decided by him. Phew! Hearing Yu Taiyan's words, Du Xiaofu let out a long sigh of relief. That was good. As long as the overall structure of the divine kingdom didn't change, he was more than happy to accept all of this. After all, he was used to being a hands-off boss in the divine martial world. Everything was handled by Yi Wuming, Elder Yi, Murong Yorua, his father, and the others. Du Xiaofu only needed to work hard to cultivate and improve his strength, then lead everyone into battle when the time came. As for the trivial matters, just thinking about them gave him a headache. With He Mengchang, Hua Yuankuan, and Duan Baichuan, the three divine generals, Du Xiaofu could rest assured and leave everything to them. In addition, father, senior brother Chu, senior brother Long, and senior brother Ling will also stay in the divine kingdom to guard it. If you need them, they will lend you a hand. Yu Taiyin looked at Du Xiaofu and added, "That's great." Du Xiaofu was overjoyed at the unexpected good news. This was simply a great thing. With Chu Daoju, Ling Feng, Long San, and the others, the divine kingdom would be even more stable. In addition, although Master Yu Yuqian's strength wasn't that great, he was able to borrow a precious weapon like the bloodbath. Naturally, he had his own unique points. It could be said that even if Yu Taiyin left directly, the divine kingdom would still be as strong as before if a new divine king wasn't appointed. This was because behind these people from the 3,000 boundless worlds, there was an extremely terrifying force. If they really went crazy, they might be able to stir up an entire world. If they truly wanted to cultivate their forces wholeheartedly, they might even be able to unify the transcendent Changrong heaven. In the past, Yu Taiyin had relied on the bloodbath to face the encirclement of tens of thousands of immortal realm experts and kill thousands of them with one slash. In the end, he had even forced the meditative realm experts to retreat, not daring to stop them from leaving the Qian Su Jinghua heaven. With such an expert guarding the divine kingdom, Du Xiaofu was very reassured. Then it's settled. The divine devil battle realm is about to open. Prepare yourself. Yu Taiyin nodded and said to Du Xiaofu, the divine devil battle realm was a major event. The entire transcendent Changrong heaven attached great importance to it. In fact, even the powerful forces of other worlds wanted to get their hands on it. That, Du Xiaofu paid no attention to Yu Taiyin. Inexplicably, he revealed an embarrassed smile, and with a hint of shyness, he said, "Senior brother Yu, since I've inherited the throne of the divine emperor, does that mean he?" As he spoke, his eyes began to emit a green light. In the end, he was still chuckling nonstop, but he just couldn't finish his sentence in one go. Which one? Yu Taiyin raised an eyebrow and asked in confusion. Yu Yuqian, Chu Daoju, Ling Feng, Long San, Yu Qingyin, He Jibai, and the others all looked at Du Xiaofu in unison. They were all puzzled. When did this guy become so shy? He even blushed. It was really inconceivable. Was this still the daring Du Xiaofu in their impression? It's that, Du Xiaofu stretched out his hands and began to gesture in front of him. But his movements made everyone confused. They didn't understand what he meant at all. However, Du Xiaofu just stared with his eyes wide open and continuously made hand gestures, causing the group of powerhouses to be confused. That's your head. You brat. Which one is it? Yu Taiyin was a little anxious and scolded with a smile. He really couldn't understand why Du Xiaofu's personality had changed. He was stuttering when he spoke. This wasn't his style at all. Du Xiaofu's eyes swept across everyone's faces and found that they were all confused. No one understood what he meant. He could only spread his hands helplessly then lowered his head and whispered, "I've inherited the throne of the Divine Emperor. Does that mean I have to have a treasure like the Imperial Seal?" Damn it. Damn it. Holy shit. Yu Taiyin, Chu Daoju, Ling Feng, Long San, and the others couldn't help but curse. They didn't know whether to laugh or cry. He wants the Imperial Seal? A leopard can't change its spots. This brat is still asking for a beating. Yu Taiyin smiled bitterly. He still didn't know why Du Xiaofu was stuttering for so long. It turned out that he had his eyes on the Divine Nation's Imperial Seal. Is this guy really the expert who fought so many experts before? Yu Chengyao rubbed her smooth forehead, speechless. She had been completely defeated by Du Xiaofu. Her impression of him had changed greatly. Du Xiaofu's current attitude really did not have the slightest bit of demeanor of a powerhouse. His bashful appearance was simply like a child. Indeed, it was a treasure that condensed the fortune of a nation. It was the convergence of the thoughts of countless living beings. It was the foundation of the Yuqing Divine Nation. Really? Du Xiaofu ignored everyone's reaction. He stared at Yu Taiyin with his eyes wide open. The Imperial Seal of a nation was no ordinary item. When he had the Divine Martial World, Dongli Chihuang had used many underhanded methods to obtain the Imperial Qi of the Stone Dragon Empire's Imperial Palace. Later on, when the desolate nation was established, Du Xiaofu also benefited greatly. In the final battle with the demonic god, Du Xiaofu had even borrowed the power of the ancient, desolate nation seal's tyrannical shadow. Under the worship of all the living beings in the 3 continents, 9 continents, and 1 world, Du Xiaofu had gathered a vast amount of willpower and summoned an endless amount of sovereign qi to his body, becoming a heavenly saint. The Yuqing Divine Kingdom was many times larger than the Xinwu world. The imperial dragon qi that gathered in the Yuqing Divine Kingdom was naturally more terrifying. If Du Xiaofu could obtain the Imperial Seal, his cultivation would definitely rise to another level. Most importantly, the faith of living beings was a form of the law of the soul. With it, he could have a chance to make a breakthrough in the law of the soul. The law of the soul was mysterious and unpredictable. Back in the divine martial world, Du Xiaofu didn't understand it at all. He only knew that he could use the imperial qi of the imperial palace to fight against enemies and have the ability to punish the heavens and kill the earth. However, he didn't understand the law of the soul. Now that he had such an opportunity, he didn't want to let it go. "You brat!" Yu Taiyin scolded again, exasperated. "The Divine Emperor's position is already given to you. Do you think the Imperial Seal will run away?" He smiled bitterly and kept glaring at Du Xiaofu, rolling his eyes one after another. Great! Du Xiaofu was overjoyed. This was a completely unexpected gain. At the beginning of the competition, he thought that the final reward would be an upper-grade true weapon of laws. Now, even if an upper-grade true weapon of laws was placed in front of him, he wouldn't exchange it. All of this had far exceeded his expectations. The Imperial Seal can be given to you at any time, but don't refine it for the time being. The Divine Devil battlefield is about to open. There's not much time left. There's no time for you to refine the Imperial Seal. Yu Taiyin glared at Du Xiaofu and continued. If I had given you the Divine Emperor's position when the Origin space reopened, there would have been enough time. However, you've been in seclusion in the Qian Su Jinghua heaven for nearly 100 years. Now, it's too late. The trip to the Divine Devil battlefield is very important. You can't be careless. As he spoke, he suddenly waved his hand. A golden light suddenly appeared and bloomed in the hall. This bright light was like a sun in the sky. It released a blazing aura and dyed the entire hall in golden light. The Imperial Seal. Du Xiaofu's eyes flickered. His heart was incomparably shocked. Needless to say, this was the Imperial Seal of the Yuqing Divine Country. It released a vast imperial aura that made one's heart tremble. No wonder it was an object that gathered the willpower of all the creatures in a divine country. Compared to the desolate country's Ba-ing, it was simply the difference between a grain of rice and the moon. This is the divine country's Imperial Seal, the Yang Dragon Sword. As Yu Taiyin spoke, he waved his sleeve. Invisible waves rippled out from his body and quickly spread out. Then, The bright golden light in the center of the hall quickly shrank. In the end, a sword-shaped object appeared and floated in the air. The sword was 3 fingers wide and more than 3 feet long. On the sword body, there was a twisting dragon shape. The dragon's tail was at the tip of the sword and extended all the way. The dragon's head and neck turned into the sword hilt. The dragon's head was slightly open. A pair of lifelike eyes were like a real dragon. It carried a domineering aura that made one tremble all over just by looking at it. He Zibai, Yu Chengliang, Duan Yizong, He Zixin and the others who were present felt their legs go soft under the terrifying aura. They wanted to prostrate themselves on the ground. What a terrifying sword! Du Xiaofu's eyes trembled. He was deeply shocked. His primordial spirit was throbbing nonstop at this moment. This was even under the circumstances where Yu Taiyin had suppressed the power of the sword. If it was released completely, even an ordinary true severing realm cultivator would have to kneel down in an instant. Du Xiaofu was a little doubtful. If such a terrifying object was really in his hands, would he have the ability to refine it? Now, you decide. Do you want me to keep this Yang Dragon Sword for now? Or do you want me to seal a portion of its power and give it to you directly? Yu Taiyin did not look at Du Xiaofu. He only stared at the extraordinary sword and asked softly. Seeing how terrifying the sword was, Du Xiaofu was a little uncertain. With regards to such a terrifying item, he naturally wanted to obtain it himself. However, on second thought, with his current cultivation, it would probably be very difficult for him to refine it. If he was careless, he might even suffer a backlash. He was a little embarrassed. He did not know what to do. Although Du Xiaofu could not see the grade of the sword, just from the aura it had revealed, if he were to encounter experts outside, they would definitely fight over it. Perhaps even experts at 7th or 8th sky of a mortal realm would be jealous. Chapter 28:19. Translator. Nyoibo Studio Editor. Nyoibo Studio Translator. Nyoibo Studio Editor. Nyoibo Studio. Such a stomp was extremely powerful. A large ring of smoke and dust flew in all directions. The dense smoke jumped and danced in the dense fog. Any expert of the sage, accomplished realm would have been crushed into dregs if they hadn't used their cultivation to resist this attack. However, when the 3 demon emperors' foot landed on the ground, he could not help but frown. This was because he could sense that his foot had not stepped on Du Xiaoyao. He could not help but be shocked by such a situation. Du Xiaoyao was severely injured. Even if she was in her peak condition, it would be very difficult for her to avoid the stomp. The 3 demon emperor did not even pull his foot out of the pit. He looked around, trying to find Du Xiaoyao. Don't look for her. We are here. Suddenly, a young man's voice rang out and entered the 3 demon emperor's ears. However, these words did not come from Du Xiaoyao. Most importantly, this voice sounded extremely familiar. It caused all the hair on the 3 demon emperors' bodies to stand on end as they sensed a dangerous aura coming from it. The 3 demon emperors' hearts trembled as they looked in the direction of the voice. They saw 2 figures standing quietly in front of them after the smoke and dust had slowly dispersed. Du Xiaofu. The 3 demon emperor narrowed his eyes and stared at one of the 2 figures. It was Du Xiaofu, who they had just run away from. The golden-clothed young man, Du Xiaoyao, was also standing next to him. How could this be? Looking at Du Xiaofu and Du Xiaoyao, the 3 demon emperor murmured in disbelief. He had made a prompt decision to retreat when he had run into them. Except for the damned monkey, who had chased after him, the others had not moved. Logically speaking, Du Xiaofu should not have been able to find him so easily in the sea of fog. Who would have thought that Du Xiaofu would show up at the most critical moment after he had used up the precious item that Lord Devil had given him to kill Du Xiaoyao directly? This infuriated the 3 demon emperors. If he had been able to kill Du Xiaoyao, he could have just used up the origin stones. But now that Du Xiaofu had arrived, killing Du Xiaoyao had become impossible. It stinks. Du Xiaoyao pinched her nose with one hand and wore an unlucky look on her face. It seemed that she was very dissatisfied with the fact that the 3 demon emperors had raised their feet above her head. All right, stop messing around. Let me do it. Du Xiaofu smiled and said to Du Xiaoyao, After glaring at Du Xiaofu, Du Xiaoyao curled the corners of her mouth and retreated while saying, "I'll leave this idiot to you." Watching Du Xiaoyao leave, Du Xiaofu's face slowly turned serious as he looked at the three demon emperors. The devil religion really has a lot of tricks up its sleeves. Seeing the three demon emperors' current state, Du Xiaofu could not help but sigh in his heart. Before entering the space torture corridor, Moksha and Imo Lingzi had respectively used Great Devil Shakes the World and Blood Devil Real Body. Now, the three demon emperors' tricks seemed to be similar to those of the two demon emperors. However, compared to Moksha and Imo Lingzi, the three demon emperors were much more powerful than them. Judging from their auras, they were not much weaker than him. The demon gods were worthy of being demon gods, worthy of being the enemy of the Lord of 3,000 worlds and the dragon god. It seemed that the foundation of the devil religion was much deeper than he had imagined. Du Xiaofu, how did you do it? At this time, the three demon emperors were still looking at Du Xiaofu thoughtfully and murmuring. He really wanted to know how Du Xiaofu was able to lock onto the target's position so quickly in the sea of fog. Ha ha! Du Xiaofu laughed and did not answer his question. He directly soared into the sky, his robe fluttering in the wind as he stood proudly in the air. There was no aura fluctuation on his body, and all his aura was restrained. He looked like an ordinary person without any cultivation. However, in the eyes of the three demon emperors, such an ordinary figure had an inexplicable aura rising around him. It was a kind of natural rhythm that was in harmony with the heavens and the earth. It had a feeling of being one with nature, mysterious and unfathomable. Retreat. The three demon emperors did not hesitate too much and quickly retreated. He knew in his heart that although he had the support of the demon god's source stone, he could not maintain this state for too long. If he continued to fight with Du Xiaofu, the final result would be very unfavorable for him. After coming up with a plan, the three demon emperors' burly bodies moved at an extremely fast speed. They were incomparably agile as their bodies leaped forward. In a flash, they had already arrived at the fog that was hundreds and thousands of miles away. Trying to escape? First, you threatened to kill my woman. Then, you bullied my brother. If I let you go like this, would I still be called the Demon King Du Xiaofu? Looking at the three demon emperors fleeing in the air, Du Xiaofu raised his eyes slightly. However, he was not in a hurry to chase after them. Just as the three demon emperors' figures entered the fog, Sumo's figure suddenly disappeared from the spot. Suemo activated the first style of Fuyao. He ignored the obstruction of space and directly appeared in the fog in the distance, blocking the three demon emperors' escape route. Damn it! How could this be? The huge bodies of the three demon emperors suddenly came to a halt while they were fleeing. They forcibly stopped moving forward. This was because when they broke through a layer of fog, the purple-robed young man's figure appeared in their line of sight again. The purple-robed young man was just standing in the air, facing them directly. The three demon emperors panicked in his heart. He was shocked by Du Xiaofu's means. This young man had actually mastered the means to travel freely in the fog. Previously, he was not very sure about this, but now there was no doubt about it. Go back. Du Xiaofu stood in the air, waving his big sleeves. Facing the three demon emperors, he directly punched them. In the sea of fog, when they could see each other clearly, it meant that they were very close to each other. At such a close distance, Du Xiaofu's punch hit the three demon emperors' huge bodies without any hindrance. This punch seemed ordinary, but it contained all of Du Xiaofu's cultivation. He did not hold back at all. When dealing with the people of the devil religion, there was no reason for him to be lenient. A muffled bang was heard, and the three demon emperors were sent flying back thousands of miles. His body drew a long trajectory in the fog. When the huge demonic body stopped, the three demon emperors' throat made a gulping sound. Then, his Adam's apple moved as if he had swallowed a mouthful of blood. At the place where Du Xiaofu's punch had hit, the three demon emperors' bodies burst open. Demon blood gushed out and flowed on the ground. Demon chi was floating around the three demon emperors' wounds. A pair of demonic eyes, which were as bright as the sun, stared at Du Xiaofu. The shock in his heart could not be any greater. He could not believe that he had been injured by this young man's attack. Run! The three demon emperors did not dare to delay any longer. They turned around and dashed into the fog again. This time, he did not move in a straight line like before. Instead, he kept turning around in an attempt to get rid of Du Xiaofu's pursuit. If his opponent's means were not particularly brilliant, he would have a chance to get rid of him. You are quite smart. You know how to change your trajectory. Du Xiaofu, who was standing in the same place, suddenly exclaimed in surprise. The corners of his mouth curled up. With the help of the divine soul power in the cosmos bag, all the movements of the three demon emperors were clearly displayed in his eyes. It seemed to be a smart move, but it was also quite funny. However, it's all in vain. Du Xiaofu snorted coldly. Then, he disappeared from where he was and went in front of the three demon emperors again to intercept him. Damn it! Damn it! The three demon emperors were startled once again. So, they started to curse again and again. Then, they suddenly retreated. They were afraid that Du Xiaofu would suddenly attack them again. At the same time, he crossed his arms in front of his chest, and a tyrannical strength surged. After that, his arms suddenly swung, forming two intersecting blades, and fiercely shot out, attacking towards Du Xiaofu. The two wind blades, which were swift and fierce, broke through the void and arrived in front of Du Xiaofu in the blink of an eye. Break! Du Xiaofu softly spat out a single word. It was spoken casually, but it was like a thunderclap that suddenly exploded. Bang! A thunderbolt, which was shaped like a dragon, appeared in the void and smashed the two wind blades into pieces. The two forces collapsed and dissipated. Du Xiaofu, I will fight you to the death. Suddenly, the three demon emperors, who were retreating, froze in place. His body, which was more imposing than the sky, was even more majestic than a mountain. His muscles were bulging and exuded a terrifying aura. In comparison, Du Xiaofu seemed small and ordinary. However, the eyes of the three demon emperors were filled with a deep seriousness. This was because he knew very well how terrifying this seemingly tiny human youth in front of him actually was. Since you are so persistent, even if I die, I will not let you have an easy time. Kill! The three demon emperors shouted suddenly. Then, he waved his fists and attacked Du Xiaofu's head. The muscles on his two arms rose and fell, and the sound of his blood flowing in his veins was like the roaring and surging of a great river. It carried a strength that could tear the heavens and the earth apart. As soon as he moved, it caused the space to shatter into a mess with a crash. Are you going to fight me to the death? In the face of such an attack, Du Xiaofu, who was standing in the air opposite the three demon emperors, became serious. Apparently, the three demon emperors knew that they could not get rid of him. They had no other choice but to fight him head-on. With the support of the demon god Origin Stone, the three demon emperors' cultivation had reached a terrifying level. They were not much weaker than Su Ke. If the three demon emperors wanted to fight him to the death, they could indeed pose a great threat to Su Ke. So what if you have the support of the demon god's power? After all, you are not the demon god. Since you are here, I will torture you. Du Xiaofu spoke in an indifferent tone. Chapter 28:20. Quite a few people from the other factions have also arrived. Du Xiaofu looked around and realized that there were large groups of people gathered in many places. There were already no less than 30 factions. Needless to say, these people were all from the other 35 Holy Lands and 71 Divine Kingdoms. These factions are all very strong. Yu Qingyan also came back to his senses. He no longer stared at the entrance of the divine demon battlefield. Like Du Xiaofu, he began to size up the experts of the other factions. From his observation, the 30 factions were all very strong. Among them, there were about 13 or 14 that were about the same level as Yuqing Divine Kingdom. Other than that, there were 7 or 8 that were slightly weaker. The other 10 or so factions were all very strong, far stronger than his own faction. There were even some camps that had more than 100,000 people. Every one of them was very powerful, and many of them were so strong that even Yu Qingyan could not see through them. After careful observation, there were even a few people who made him feel a little fearful. This was really scary. It seemed that among the peers of the transcendent Changrong heaven, there were already some who had reached the true severing perfection stage, walking ahead of them. Every faction has one or two people who have reached the true severing perfection stage, and there are also many who are at the peak of the late stage of true severing perfection stage. Du Xiaofu also noticed the situation over there. His eyes moved slightly, and he muttered, "Those must be the disciples of the other holy lands." He thought to himself. Only now did he truly understand the terrifying strength of the Holy Lands. Among those of the same generation, the strongest in the Yuqing Divine Kingdom were himself, Yu Qingyan, Yu Chengyao, Meng Dongyang, Yu Yuran, and the others. However, among those forces, there were already true severing consummate experts, and there were quite a few of them. Apart from that, there were also 10 times more true severing perfection stage cultivators on their side. Compared to those factions, the difference between Yuqing Divine Kingdom and those factions was very obvious. However, this was something that could be expected. After all, the 35 Holy Lands had a very deep foundation that had been accumulated for countless years. It was not something that the factions of the Divine Kingdoms could compare to. Looking at it this way, if there were no true severing consummate cultivators among them, that would be a very strange thing. Of course, Du Xiaofu did not appear to be that cautious because of the difference in cultivation level. If he used his full strength, he would be much more terrifying than an ordinary severing truth consummate cultivator, so he naturally would not place too much importance on those young elites. There are 35 Holy Lands and 72 Divine Kingdoms in the transcendent Changrong heaven. That's a total of 107 major powers. At this moment, more than 30% of them have already arrived. The other 70 or so powers will most likely arrive soon. At that time, there will be even more experts. Tung Yuanshan came to Du Xiaofu's side. His eyes flickered as he looked around. He felt the pressure. He was definitely one of the top elites among his peers in the Divine Kingdom. However, if he was compared to the entire Supreme Changrong Heaven, he really couldn't be ranked. Not to mention those elites at the consummate level of truth-severing stage. Just the numerous people who were also at the peak of the late stage of truth-severing stage were enough to make people feel immense pressure. Perhaps in the entire Yuqing Divine Kingdom, only the current Divine Emperor Du Xiaofu could compete with those prodigies, holy sons and holy daughters. So what if they're holy sons and holy daughters? Our Divine Emperor's abilities are unparalleled, and he views all the heroes of the same generation as nothing. With him around, who dares to underestimate our Yuqing Divine Kingdom? We'll definitely beat them until they have to look for their teeth on the ground. Fatty Fanyushu had unknowingly moved to Du Xiaofu's other side. His eyes narrowed into slits as he chuckled. In his opinion, Du Xiaofu was able to fight against more than 100 true severing cultivators by himself. Those holy sons and holy daughters definitely could not compare to him. The gap between them and Du Xiaofu was as huge as the gap between himself and those holy sons and holy daughters. On the side, the young elites of the Yuqing Divine Kingdom exchanged glances when they heard Fan Yushu's words. Then, they all smiled wryly and nodded. Du Xiaofu was now their Majesty the Godly Emperor. He was a freak that ordinary people couldn't compare to. Just as Du Xiaofu, Tang Yuanshan, Fan Yushu, and the others were talking, the void trembled violently. Swoosh! Another large group of people appeared and gathered at the bottom of the huge crack in the abyss. Then, with a few more swoosh sounds, more and more forces arrived and gathered with the crowd. With the passage of time, more and more people gathered in this area. In less than half a day, the people from the 35 Holy Lands and 72 Divine Kingdoms had all gathered. Suddenly, this space seemed to be filled with people everywhere. For the opening of the Celestial Demon battlefield this time, every force had sent a large number of disciples. Every force had at least 10,000 to 20,000 people, and some of the more powerful Holy Lands had sent more than 100,000 people. These people added up to no less than 5 to 6 million people, which was almost 7 to 8 times the number of people when the Yuqing Divine Kingdom's origin space opened. Since you're all here, let's enter the Celestial Demon battlefield directly. At this time, the figure of an old man appeared out of nowhere. There was no fluctuation of energy on his body, as if he was just an ordinary old man. However, under such circumstances, no one would treat this old man as an ordinary person. He was definitely a terrifying master. Could it be a meditative realm expert? Du Xiaofu was surprised. He had seen the terror of a meditative realm expert. Back in the Qian Su Jinghua heaven, the dragon devil ancestor of the Taisher demonic dragon clan was just like this person in front of him. All of his aura was restrained, and no one could see through him. After the old man finished speaking, he slowly stretched out a finger that was like a dry branch, and then gently pointed at the void. Swoosh! A peculiar wave of energy rippled out and spread out rapidly in the void. Swoosh! High up in the sky, above the huge crack of the abyss, a strong light suddenly flashed. Then, the crack of the abyss seemed to be magnified several times, and became even more terrifying. It was like the entrance to a dark hell that could swallow everything. The seal has been broken. Go in, all of you. I've told you what to do. Be careful. Chu Daoju raised his head at Du Xiaofu, indicating that everyone should enter the crack of the abyss. Don't worry, we'll definitely come back safe and sound. Du Xiaofu nodded, then waved his hand and said loudly, "Disciples of the Yuqing Divine Kingdom, follow me into the celestial demon battlefield." He took the lead, flew up, and plunged directly into the crack of the abyss. "Yes, Your Majesty." Many young disciples of the Divine Kingdom responded in unison. Then, no one dared to delay any longer. They rushed into the sky at the same time and followed closely behind Du Xiaofu. More than 20,000 people soared into the sky, and in just a moment, they arrived at the entrance of the crack of the abyss. Then, they plunged into it and disappeared as if they had entered the darkness. The disciples of the other forces also entered one after another. Not long after, the area that was originally filled with people opened up again. Only a few immortal realm experts were left standing in their original places. They were not allowed to enter. Seal. After all the young experts had entered, the ordinary-looking old man in the sky waved his hand again. Then, with a loud rumble, the crack of the abyss began to slowly close up. Finally, when the dust settled, the huge crack merged into a line and disappeared, returning to the normal void. "I hope they'll be able to reap great rewards," Ling Feng said softly as he looked at the scene. "There are no weaklings among the forces in the transcendent Changrong sky, especially the 35 Holy Lands. They're all very scary. I hope they won't encounter any big trouble in there," Long San said with a hint of worry. The 35 Holy Lands were very powerful. Even if the disciples of the 72 Divine Kingdoms were added together, they were still far from being a match for them. Therefore, he was worried about the 20,000 people from the Yuqing Divine Kingdom. Don't worry. With Du Xiaofu around, he won't be at a disadvantage. Chu Daoju was relatively calm. He had confidence in Du Xiaofu. Under his leadership, the Yuqing Divine Kingdom would not be at a disadvantage when facing many opponents. The vast ancient land gave off a bleak feeling. Broken mountains, cracked earth, and ancient ruins buried in ruins. It was a scene of decline. The sky was dark red, as if blood had dyed the clouds red. In the distance, there were huge skeletons of giant beasts. The skeletons were eerie, but they were grayish-white without any luster. The air was filled with a murderous aura. The wind whistled, mixed with angry roars and sounds of killing. It was inexplicably terrifying and soul-stirring. After Du Xiaofu and the others entered the crack of the abyss, they saw a scene that made their hearts tremble. They landed on a broken mountain ridge. The rocks beneath their feet were dark red and black. They looked around with rapt attention. Around them, when the people from the other 35 Holy Lands and 71 Divine Kingdoms saw Du Xiaofu and the others, they didn't take the initiative to approach. From afar, they looked in another direction and instantly flew away. As expected of the battlefield between the 33 heavens and the demon race at the beginning of the world. This is a land of great danger. Everyone, be careful. Du Xiaofu's eyes narrowed. After entering this land of danger, although they hadn't encountered any danger, the murderous aura in the air made them not dare to be careless. This bloody aura was enough to make one's expression change. Just by standing here, they could feel a terrifying strength drilling into their bodies, wanting to erode their bodies and primordial spirits. Fortunately, their strengths couldn't be considered to be weak. Moreover, this battlefield was extremely ancient, and it had been left behind from the primeval times. After experiencing the baptism of countless years, the bloody aura had weakened greatly since a long time ago, and there was even more ancient and desolate aura that permeated every single corner of the battlefield. This is an ancient battlefield. The conditions here are different from the outside world. It will definitely give birth to unimaginable treasures, but at the same time, it will also give birth to some terrifying beings. We must be careful, Yu Qingyan said as he stood beside Du Xiaofu. In ancient times, after the terrifying battles here were covered up, it was possible that the murderous aura here would give birth to powerful spiritual beings. But at the same time, under these conditions, there would likely be even more vicious and evil beings. Chapter 28-21. Before reaching the heavenly sage realm, living beings could comprehend various ultimacies and merge them with their own cultivation techniques to increase their strength. Once they reached the heavenly sage realm, they would return to their original state. They could use the power of law to trigger the momentum of the heavens and earth and borrow the power of the heavens and earth for their own use. Their every move would carry the carvings and charm of the Great Way. In the heavenly sage realm, one could continuously comprehend the universal dharma and logos and perfect the laws. Finally, one could transcend and be above all living beings. Just like the Du family ancestor in the primordial age, one could surpass the heavenly sage realm and merge with the heavenly way if one was lucky enough. Du Xiaofu was already half a step to the heavenly sage realm and had mastered a part of the laws. He only needed one more step to reach the real heavenly sage realm. However, the three-demon emperor was different. Although he had borrowed the power of the demon god and was infinitely close to the heavenly sage realm, or more accurately, he was infinitely close to being half a step to the heavenly sage realm. However, even though he had the power of the demon god, he was greatly suppressed in this world and could not unleash his full strength. Under the suppression of the formless rules of the world, his comprehension of the heavenly laws and even the deeper level was restrained and could not unleash his full strength. Besides that, the successive battles during the primeval times caused him to suffer extremely great injuries, and he still hadn't fully recovered until now. Under the suppression of these two factors, he could only feel aggrieved when facing Du Xiaofu. Du Xiaofu, kill me today if you have the ability. Otherwise, one day, I will make you taste the cruelest punishment in this world. The three-demon emperor roared, and the aggrieved feeling in his heart was indescribable. If it was in another world, with his strength and realm, he could completely suppress Du Xiaofu and even easily crush him to death. Unfortunately, this was not the outside world. Even though he was many levels higher than Du Xiaofu, he could not do anything to him in this world. The formless rules of the world were simply too terrifying. Otherwise, with the demon god's strength, he could not have escaped from Lu Xiaoyou's pursuit and was only suppressed by the heavenly way. Hee, you still dare to boast at this time. Today, I will definitely kill you. Do you think you still have a chance to escape? Du Xiaofu laughed and the aura on his body suddenly changed. It gushed out wantonly and was no longer as restrained as before. The purplish gold light interweaved with the lightning and reflected off each other. It possessed an extremely fierce killing intent and was extremely lofty. At the same time, waves of strange ripples emanated from his body and spread out into the void, covering every inch of space. The three demon emperors' bodies were also covered and unable to escape. In the heavens and earth, the primordial spirit of the three demon emperor was heavens and earth. That strange aura kept drilling into his body, affecting his physical body and soul, causing him to panic for no reason, giving rise to a sense of powerlessness. He couldn't even summon up the will to resist. This kind of feeling was similar to facing a high and mighty god, yet it was not the same. Strictly speaking, it was more like the mighty force of nature had swept out, and it was extremely vast and all-pervasive. Thunder 8 realm. Du Xiaofu's lips moved slightly as he exhaled and shouted. As his voice rang out, a thunderous explosion resounded in the entire space. It was as though a bolt of lightning had struck from the clear sky. Then, the second, the third, the fourth. A moment later, countless thunderbolts exploded in the void like countless huge firecrackers being set off at the same time. The void was blown into pieces and boiling. The three demon emperors were buried in the void. The terrifying thunderbolts were roaring, and the thunderbolts were intertwined with each other. The power was vast and mighty, destroying everything. Du Xiaofu's figure moved lightly as he walked in the void. Wherever he passed, the lightning that filled the sky parted on its own, creating a path for him to move forward. Du Xiaofu went straight to the deepest part of the sea of thunderbolts and stopped in front of the three demon emperors. Howl, howl. At this time, the three demon emperors kept roaring angrily. That pair of thick arms kept waving, shattering the lightning bolts that were attacking him. However, the thunderbolts were too vast. No matter how hard he tried, he could not shatter them in a short period of time. However, with his powerful physical body, he did not need to worry about being severely injured by the thunderbolts. Du Xiaofu had been mentally prepared for this. He did not expect to kill the three demon emperors so easily. Without any fluctuation in his eyes, Du Xiaofu walked in the thunderbolts and stopped 1,000 feet away from the three demon emperors. His eyes gradually narrowed, and his gaze became extremely cold. Then, he stretched out his hand toward the three demon emperors again. God-binding grip. He clenched his fist and said softly. Then, he used the law of space again. Boom. The void in front of him collapsed violently. The void was compressed, annihilated, and deformed in an instant. The endless thunderbolts and thunderbolts quickly gathered and formed a terrible vortex in the collapsing void. It looked like the giant mouth of a celestial demon, which was emitting a terrifying aura. The three demon emperors, who were resisting the power of the thunderbolts, were suddenly trapped in the thunderbolt vortex. Their figures became blurry under the tremendous power of the space. Their sturdy muscles were crushed by the tremendous power and burst open in many places. Demonic blood for bitches. Roar. The three demon emperors roared desperately. Their hands and feet were waving wildly. Then, their bodies burst out with unparalleled strength. They wanted to break free from the confinement of the thunderbolt vortex and the space folds. The demonic chi on his body was vast and mighty like a hurricane. Then, his horrifying physical strength shook and tore apart the distorted void around him. In just a short while, the three demon emperors' powerful bodies were struggling to the edge and were about to break free. However, how could Du Xiaofu let him do as he wished? Heavenly thunder punishment. Du Xiaofu shouted. Then, the law of thunder and thunderbolts surged up into the sky. Under his control, a thunderbolt, whose width was unknown, quickly formed above the three demon emperors' heads. This thunderbolt carried a dazzling brilliance. It was surrounded by a fierce and domineering aura, which was awe-inspiring. Once it was formed, it caused the whole world to tremble and lose its color instantly. It looked like a pillar that reached the sky and was bombarding the three demon emperors' heads. Boom! A horrifying explosion spread out, causing the void to rumble and tremble. The thunderbolt was smashed into pieces and turned into a violent energy wave, which spread out in all directions. Numerous talisman runes filled the air as they spread out and attacked from a distance of 5,000 kilometers. The three demon emperors' back was immediately torn open. A deep gash, which looked like an abyss, appeared on his back. His skin and flesh were overturned and scorched, which looked hideous and horrible. When the demonic chi on his body collided with the thunderbolt, a series of sizzling sounds could be heard. Roar. The three demon emperors were still roaring. However, this time, his voice was a little low, and his chi was not as vigorous as before. At this moment, he also tasted the threat of death. Even if his physical body was invincible, he could not withstand Du Xiaofu's continuous bombardment. Those horrifying attacks landed on his body again and again, which constantly consumed his strength. Even if he borrowed the power of the demonic god's Dawn Stone, the energy would eventually be exhausted. As long as he didn't die, Du Xiaofu's methods would definitely continue to be carried out. Just as the three demon emperors had expected, Du Xiaofu jumped up once again after the heavenly thunder punishment fell. Before the three demon emperors recovered their composure, Du Xiaofu had already rushed to their side. Overbearing fists. A glowing fist smashed down and hit the chest of the third demon emperor. Boom. The three demon emperors' huge demonic body was knocked back. He fell to the ground and kept rolling. Countless cracks appeared on the ground, which spread out densely. During this time, Du Xiaofu was chasing after him and attacking him with all kinds of attacks. 8 desolated thunders. God-restricting grip. Holy sword roar. Heavenly thunder punishment. Void between heaven and earth. The heavenly thunder law and the heavenly thunder law were used together. The heavenly thunder law and the heavenly palace of purple gold radiated divine power in the hands of the purple-robed young man. Every single one of these attacks was incomparably terrifying. When they landed, terrifying roars and sharp whistles spread out in succession and cut the space apart. The three demon emperors kept dodging and resisting. At first, he was able to resist for a while. However, in the end, he could not avoid Du Xiaofu's attacks at all. His strength was getting weaker and weaker. Under the horrifying attacks, the injuries he received were getting worse and worse. In the end, he was completely trampled by Du Xiaofu. This guy's strength is so horrifying. The fog in the surrounding area was dispelled. Du Xiaoyao, Huolei Laozu, Hunji, Ouyang Shuang, and Lu Limo were not too far away. They also revealed themselves one after another and gathered in one place. All of them were dumbfounded as they watched the battle. Their faces were filled with great shock. Hunji's red lips were wide open. She could not close her mouth. The strength of a half-step heavenly saint is so horrifying. Ouyang Shuang was also in disbelief. Hearing this, Du Xiaoyao and Huolei Laozu nodded blankly. Human Emperor. Lu Limo's beautiful eyes flickered as she looked at the purple-robed figure who was shuttling back and forth between the three demon emperors. No one knew what she was thinking. The rest of them did not say anything. They just watched in a daze. As time passed, Du Xiaofu's technique suddenly paused for a moment. His black hair danced wildly, and his purple robe fluttered. On the opposite side, the aura of the three demon emperors had become extremely weak. Due to the support of the demon god's strength, his tall and sturdy body had returned to its original form, and he had regained his original appearance. Now, your life can end, Du Xiaofu said softly. Suddenly, he flipped his palm, and thunder rumbled in the sky. Chapter 28-22. Du Xiaofu and Yu Qingyao traveled together, crossing a vast expanse of land. Everywhere they looked, there was only dry reddish-black soil that was filled with the smell of blood. Demonic qi intertwined and few plants grew. Along the way, Du Xiaofu and Yu Qingyao also encountered many crimson nether flowers, which were all picked by them. However, they didn't come across any better treasures for the time being. It was not until almost a day later that they stopped in their tracks and discovered an extraordinary place. This fluctuation is unusual. There must be something good inside. Du Xiaofu stood in midair. In front of him was a broken mountain range. There was a mountain stream hidden in the mountain range, and the broken mountain ridge stretched across it. The huge rock was mottled with marks, which were obviously caused by endless blood. What a terrifying fluctuation. I'm afraid it's dangerous. We have to be careful. Yu Qingyao frowned slightly and said. In her perception, there were bursts of strong aura spurting out from the mountain stream from time to time, as if some powerful creature was breathing. What a strong soul power. Let's go and take a look. Du Xiaofu looked ahead and said. Together with Yu Qingyao, he flew straight into the mountain stream. Just as they approached, they felt a huge repulsive force surging towards them, trying to push them out. Du Xiaofu's aura burst out and resisted the repulsive force, and then he walked in step by step. As they went deeper, the soul power fluctuation in the void became even more vast. Even with Du Xiaofu's current cultivation, he could not help but be moved. There must be something good. His eyes became brighter and brighter. He was excited to find such a discovery after entering the divine demon battle realm not long ago. It's better to be careful. Yu Chengyao naturally could not hide her excitement, but she still reminded him. Let's go. Du Xiaofu nodded and did not think too much, and directly moved forward. Although the energy fluctuations that filled every corner were powerful, they were clearly not enough to stop Du Xiaofu's footsteps. Not long after, the two of them completely entered the mountain stream. On both sides, there were huge mountain walls. They were steep and precipitous, and the cliffs were 10,000 feet high. In the valley between the two stone walls, there was a mass of light that intertwined with each other, forming a huge ball of light that constantly flowed with luster. Du Xiaofu and Yu Qingyao landed on the ground, but they discovered a terrifying scene. The ground beneath their feet was actually soft, as if they were stepping on soft mud. There were even some bloody bubbles rising from the ground with a sizzling sound. I'm afraid many creatures have died here in the past. Even now, the blood stains haven't completely dried up, still soaking in the soil. Du Xiaofu's eyes moved as he stared at his feet. A putrid stench gushed out from the ground and floated in the air. It was nauseating. A treasure that can grow here is definitely not an ordinary item. Yu Chengyao's gaze moved away from her feet and looked at the ball of light. And from the aura, it should be dangerous to pick this thing. Because it was wrapped in a mass of dim light, the two of them could not clearly see what was inside. Moreover, the ball of light faintly emitted an evil aura, causing their souls to palpitate and tremble. Don't move here. I'll go over and try, Du Xiaofu instructed, then slowly stepped out and walked in front of the ball of light. In comparison, the purple-robed youth's figure was not even 1% of the size of the ball of light. It was as if he was facing a small mountain. Du Xiaofu stretched out a hand and gently pressed on the ball of light. Then, the profound qi in his body burst forth and spread out like layers of waves, rushing out. When the energy entered, the ball of light began to sway and tremble, but there were no signs of it being destroyed. Du Xiaofu could not help but raise his eyebrows. It can even erode my soul. It seems that there really is something extraordinary in here. He narrowed his eyes slightly and stabilized the power of his primordial spirit. The energy in his body surged out again. Not long after, there were a few cracking sounds, and the dim ball of light exploded with a bang. Then, a pitch-black, grass-like plant was exposed in front of Du Xiaofu. It was 7 feet tall, and its stems and leaves were as wide as knives. It's trying to escape. Catch it quickly, Yu Chengyao shouted, and Du Xiaofu heard her. However, the moment the cluster of light was destroyed, the enormous black grass rapidly shrunk and fled underground in an attempt to escape. Although it doesn't have complete intelligence, it has already developed a strong consciousness and knows how to seek good fortune and avoid disaster. It really is a good thing. Du Xiaofu did not need to be reminded. He directly used the law of matter, which interweaved into a net and enveloped the black grass. Under his full strength, the black grass could not escape at all and was quickly subdued. Under Du Xiaofu's guidance, it fell into his hand and shrank to less than a foot long. Yu Chengyao quickly came forward and looked at the black grass in Du Xiaofu's hand. She clicked her tongue and said, This is underworld spirit grass." Her large eyes widened, and there was a look of disbelief on her face. She looked very shocked. Obviously, this black grass made her uneasy. "What is underworld spirit grass?" Du Xiaofu raised his eyebrows and asked. After he came to the 33 heavens, he did not know much about many things, and there was no record of this item in the heavenly spirit record that his master gave him. Underworld spirit grass is a type of precious medicine that grows with the help of blood from battlefields. In addition to that, it also requires the nourishment of the soul wills of dead experts. The most important of all is the soul wills. Without those conditions, it would only grow into something like the crimson underworld flower. Yu Chengyao put away the emotions on her face, gently pursed her lips and said, "So it's formed from the blood and the remnant soul wills of dead experts?" Du Xiaofu was surprised. Such conditions were not easy to come by. Soul wills were the easiest to disperse, and it was not easy to gather them together. After a moment of thought, he asked Yu Qingyao, "Does this underworld spirit grass have any special effects?" Based on what he could tell, the underworld soul grass was incredibly corrosive. Thankfully, his cultivation base was very high. If he were an ordinary god-seizing expert, even just holding the underworld soul grass in his hand would cause his nascent divinity to be corroded, leaving him nothing but an empty husk. Even so, Du Xiaofu could feel his nascent divinity trembling, as if it were being affected. "I'm sure you can tell that this underworld spirit grass has the power to corrode the soul. That's its purpose." This kind of corrosive power was indeed a dangerous thing for an ordinary expert. However, if one's cultivation was profound, one could use it to train oneself. If one refined it, the soul remnant power contained within could also be absorbed. That way, the cultivator's nascent divinity will be even more condensed. Yu Qingyao didn't hide anything and said to Du Xiaofu, "This is a rare treasure. For cultivators of the true severing realm, it can even directly refine their soul to the half-step immortal level." Du Xiaofu's heart trembled. Such a huge benefit was beyond his imagination. To be able to temper one's soul to such an extent, it was truly unimaginable for ordinary cultivators. If one's nascent divinity could reach the half-step immortal level, then in the future, when cultivating in the true severing realm, one's comprehension ability would increase greatly. Everything would come naturally when cultivating. Not to mention that this underworld spirit grass could help a cultivator reach the half-step immortal level. At least it had an extremely powerful effect in enhancing the nascent divinity. Good stuff. Du Xiaofu smacked his lips, his eyes shining. After observing for a while, he put away the underworld spirit grass in his hand and said to Yu Qingyao, "Let's continue to search. If we can find more underworld spirit grass, we'll be rich." The two of them did not say anything more and continued to search the surroundings. Unfortunately, after spending half a day, he didn't even see a single stalk of it. Treasures like the underworld spirit grass were hard to come by. It was not easy to find them. However, the two of them did not return empty-handed. They found 7 or 8 crimson underworld flowers, which was a small gain. In the end, their search in this mountain stream was fruitless. Du Xiaofu and Yu Qingyao stepped on the road again, wanting to go deeper. After searching for nearly a day, they did not find any treasure similar to the underworld spirit grass this time. However, there were more than 10 crimson underworld flowers. "We've been out for almost 2 days. Let's go back and see how everyone is doing." Du Xiaofu stopped in the void and said to Yu Qingyao, "In the divinity and demon battlefield, it was said that there were many hidden dangers. Although the two of them did not encounter them, there was no guarantee that others would not encounter them. Fortunately, this should only be the border of the divinity and demon battlefield. The possibility of the demon clan and other monsters appearing was not high. Let's go back and see. They should have a lot of gains." Yu Qingyao nodded. Then, together with Du Xiaofu, they disappeared from the void. Their return speed was extremely fast. Under the circumstance that they did not need to search everywhere, they spent less than 2 hours to find the place where Yu Qingyin and the others were. "You're back," Yu Qingyin said with a smile as he looked at the two people who appeared from the void. "How was it? How was everyone's gain?" Du Xiaofu nodded and looked at the people around him. Then, he frowned slightly and asked, "You guys split up?" Under his observation, there were less than 1,000 people around Yu Qingyin out of the original 20,000 people in the Yu Qing Divine Kingdom. Yu Chengxi, Yu Chengliang, He Jibai, He Jixin, and the others were all there. However, many people from other forces were not seen. "We've been separated for less than a day and everyone has gained something. However, many people felt that it would be difficult to gain more benefits if more than 20,000 people were gathered together. Therefore, they split into 20 teams and spread out to search." Du Xiaofu nodded. There were many limitations when more than 20,000 people gathered together. If they split up, their gains would undoubtedly be greater. However, he was still a little worried. After all, this was not the outside world. No one knew when the hidden dangers would occur. Seeing his frown, Yu Qingyin said, "However, I warned them not to be too far away from each other. If an accident happens, The people around them can come to their rescue at any time. This way, there shouldn't be too big of a problem. As Yu Qingyin spoke, he revealed a wry smile. Obviously, this idea was not his idea. With so many experts from the Divine Kingdom making such a request, even the first prince, as the former Divine Emperor, could not stop them. That's good. However, we still have to send them a message. They must be careful. There are many dangers in the Fiend God battlefield that we can't imagine, Du Xiaofu said with a slight frown. He thought of the underworld soul grass that he had picked. If some seizing deity came across it and rashly went to pick it, their lives would be in danger. This was not something he wanted to see. Okay, I'll send them a message. In the crowd, He Jibai nodded and said, "Let's go together and continue to push forward. However, we have to maintain contact with the other teams at all times. We can't leave anyone behind." Du Xiaofu didn't say anything more and led the group forward. As for the areas that he had walked through before, he directly bypassed them. Most of the benefits that he could find had already fallen into his hands. As they continued to go deeper, their harvest increased. However, along with it, the fierce qi in the void became more and more frightening. The smell of blood constantly seeped into everyone's body. Only by constantly circulating their body strength could they not be affected. After 2 days, the group had harvested a lot of crimson underworld flowers. However, what made Du Xiaofu slightly disappointed was that he still did not see a single underworld soulgrass. Currently, his cultivation in the Law of Time and Law of Soul was only at the early true severing stage. If he had the underworld soulgrass, it would be much easier for him to comprehend the 2 primal laws. Just as the group was pushing forward, He Jibai softly grunted and then took out a jade stone from his Qinkuan bag. After probing it with his primordial spirit, his face instantly turned ugly. "Jibai, what's going on?" Du Xiaofu asked curiously and looked at He Jibai. He knew that the jade stone in He Jibai's hand contained the primordial spirit of other experts. Within a certain range, they could rely on this thing to communicate with each other and ensure that they did not fall behind. Something has happened. Fan Yushu and the others are about to fight with the people from Tsaming Divine Nation. He Jibai looked at Du Xiaofu and said solemnly, "Tsaming Divine Nation." Du Xiaofu muttered. He had naturally heard of this name before. It was a powerful divine nation in the supreme Changrong heaven. To be able to rank in the top 10 of the 72 divine nations, it was quite powerful. At the very least, it was much stronger than Yuqing Divine Nation. At this moment, the people from Tsangming Divine Nation were actually in conflict with Fan Yushu and the others. Fan Yushu and the others found a plant called Black Soulwood. Its growth principle is similar to the Crimson Nether Flower and the Underworld Spirit Grass, but it is much more precious than the other 2. However, at the same time, the people from Tsangming Divine Nation also found it. After some disagreement, a dispute broke out between them. He Jibai said to the people around him based on the information he had obtained from the Jade Stone, "What's the situation now?" Yu Chengyin's handsome face flashed with a touch of worry as he asked. The strength of Tsangming Divine Nation was very strong. If they were bent on making things difficult for Fan Yushu and the others, then their side would be in a lot of trouble. They sent a request for help, and there are already many teams rushing over. Fortunately, the other party has only 2,000 people, so we don't have to worry about losing too much. He Jibai said, "The people from Tsangming Divine Nation will definitely ask for help from the experts on their side. Let's go and take a look." Du Xiaofu waved his hand and took the lead, instantly rushing in the direction that He Jibai pointed. Not only was he worried about Fan Yushu and the others, but he was also very interested in the Black Soulwood. According to Yu Chengyao and the others, this thing's effect was stronger than the Underworld Spirit Grass, but it was definitely not something that ordinary people could touch. Even an early-stage truth-severing cultivator like Fan Yushu would have to take a great risk if he wanted to obtain it. The strength of Tsangming Divine Nation is very strong. Inform everyone to hurry over. Let's go. Yu Chengyin's eyes flashed as he spoke to He Jibai, and then quickly flew away. Let's go. Yu Chengyao, He Jixin, Yu Chengliang, and the others quickly followed. On the other side, Fan Yushu and more than 1,000 people gathered. Another 5,000 people from Yuqing Divine Nation had already rushed over and were nervously confronting a group of people. Among these people, Meng Dongyang of the Refining God Temple, Zhang Haoran of the War Profound Sect, and Yu Yuran of the Broken Moon Palace, the three late-stage truth-severing experts, were all present. In Sangming Divine Nation, there were already about 8,000 to 9,000 people gathered at this time, and there were also 7 late-stage truth-severing cultivators. This kind of strength was much stronger than Yuqing Divine Nation's side. Humph! Yuqing Divine Nation's people dare to compete with us for the Black Soul Wood? In Sangming Divine Nation, a young man in a brocade robe looked at Zhang Haoran, Meng Dongyang, and the others and snorted. He glanced sideways with a strong sense of disdain, not even wanting to look at the thousands of people in front of him. We clearly found the Black Soul Wood first. What right do you have to snatch it? Fan Yushu stared fiercely at the young man and asked with gritted teeth. He clutched his chest with one hand, and there was a trace of blood at the corner of his mouth. Obviously, he had just been injured by the other party in a battle. The Black Soul Wood is here. If you have the ability, come and snatch it. The young man in the brocade robe smiled coldly and patted the Chinquan bag at his waist. As soon as his voice fell, Sangming Divine Nation's camp suddenly erupted with earth-shaking laughter. A small person from Yuqing Divine Nation dares to challenge our 5th prince. You simply don't know how to write the word death. If you have the ability, come and snatch it. We're right here, and we'll teach you at any time. The 5th prince's late-stage truth-severing strength. Why would he be afraid of you small fries? Chapter 28-23. The people from the Sangming Divine Nation looked at Meng Dongyang, Zhang Haoran, Yu Yuran, Fan Yushu, and the other disciples of the Yuqing Divine Nation. They were all arrogant and mocking. The reason for this was that the Sangming Divine Nation was stronger than the Yuqing Divine Nation. In the Divine Demon battlefield, they did not need to worry about these people. Thousands of young experts from the Yuqing Divine Nation glared at them with anger and indignation. They were all outstanding disciples from various factions and had never been treated with such contempt. However, the other party was far above them in terms of numbers and overall strength. This made them angry, but they did not dare to do anything. However, when they saw how restrained they were, the people from the Sangming Divine Nation became even more excited. A bunch of cowards. I don't know where you get the courage to talk back to our 5th prince. Hurry up and go back. Go back to your sect and hide under the pants of your elders. A bunch of good-for-nothings. If I were you, I would have slit my throat. Get out of here. If you don't, we will chase you away. Many people from Sangming Divine Nation shouted loudly, and waves of cold laughter could be heard endlessly. In front of them, the young man in the brocade robe, the 5th prince of the Sangming Divine Nation, had a disdainful smile on his face. While everyone was laughing, an expert stepped forward with a weapon in his hand. He pointed at the thousands of disciples from the Yuqing Divine Nation and threatened them loudly, trying to scare them away. Sangming Divine Nation, you have gone too far. Meng Dongyang's face was gloomy as he gritted his teeth and shouted. He took a step forward and his aura surged out. His late-stage truth-severing strength caused the surrounding laws to roar and shake, causing the void to explode. In the face of the Sangming Divine Nation's unwarranted mockery, he could no longer endure it. What bullshit 5th prince? Does he think he is unbeatable just because he is strong? Tung Yuan Shan was also angry and shouted, You snatched away the ebony soul wood that we discovered, and yet you still dare to be so aggressive. You people of Sangming Divine Kingdom are truly overbearing. On the other side, Yu Yuran flew up to the sky like a butterfly in the wind, her colorful dress fluttering in the wind. Waves of energy spread out from her delicate body and spread out in the void, intertwining with Meng Dongyang's and Tung Yuanshan's auras as if they were trying to resonate and create a vast aura. After the three of them made their moves, the other experts from the Yuqing Divine Kingdom also rushed into the sky with angry looks on their faces. Each of them unleashed their powerful cultivation. Boundless power of laws instantly boiled and stirred the void into a mess. Isn't it just because they have more people than us? Do you think I'm afraid of you? Kill them. The people of our Yuqing Divine Kingdom have never been afraid of anything. You stole our things, injured our people, and still dare to use your power to oppress us. Even if I have to risk my life, I will make you lose a layer of skin. Everyone, let's attack together and kill those bastards from Songming Divine Nation. Everyone from the Yuqing Divine Kingdom was instantly enraged. Everyone began to yell and shout. It was obvious that they were holding back their anger. Figures rushed into the sky and stood beside the experts in the late stage of the severance stage. They were ready to fight at any time. Hee. Seeing this scene, the fifth prince of Songming Divine Nation couldn't help but sneer. Since you want to die, how can we not fulfill your wish? As he spoke, a snow-white long sword appeared in his hand, and a murderous aura shot out. Kill them. Don't let anyone from the Yuqing Divine Nation go. His eyes were cold and murderous. He suddenly pointed the tip of his sword forward, and a bright sword light slashed out. It went straight for Meng Dongyang, who bore the brunt of the attack. Humph, if you want to die, don't blame us for being ruthless. Kill them all. Let the people of the Yuqing Divine Nation in the Fiend God battlefield die. How dare you offend our fifth prince? Kill them. Everyone from the Songming Godly Nation shouted. Their magnificent aura soared into the sky and surged towards the Yuqing Godly Nation. Those who were present were all outstanding figures among the younger generation. Each of them had extraordinary strength and was extremely terrifying. The invisible fluctuation of the laws produced violent vibrations that affected the entire world. The void turned into powder inch by inch. The ground and mountains under everyone's feet were all overturned. It was like the rising tide of the sea, and there was a loud explosion. At the same time, bright cracks appeared in the bloody gray sky. It was like the night sky was torn apart by lightning. It was ferocious and terrifying. Songming Divine Nation, today, I'd like to see just how powerful the top 10 forces of the 72 Divine Nations are. Tung Yuanshan roared. He flipped the long sword in his hand, and a large number of light swords were slashed out by him. They spun and rushed toward the Songming Divine Nation. Whoever backs down today is a fucking coward. Fatty Fan Yushu's eyes were cold, and he also rushed out. Kill. Today, one of us must die. Kill these arrogant bastards. Kill. In an instant, there was an earth-shattering roar in the field. The sounds of fighting rose and fell one after another. The two sides quickly collided. Layers of light screens intertwined in the void, and there was an earth-shattering explosion. The tyrannical energy shot out and destroyed everything in its path. Kill. Fan Yushu, Zhang Haoran, Meng Dongyang, and the others were all riled up. They fought with all their might. However, after the first clash, many of them suffered serious injuries. Yuqing Divine Nation is just so. They are really like chickens and dogs. Someone from the Songming Divine Nation snorted. They had a lot of advantages in terms of numbers and overall strength. Therefore, after a round of fighting, they had the upper hand. As a result, these people despised the Yuqing Divine Nation even more. After a few more rounds of fighting, the Yuqing Divine Nation would definitely suffer a lot of casualties. At that time, it would be time to reap their lives. Sure enough, after a short clash, Fan Yushu was hit in the chest by a mid-stage true severing expert. He was sent flying like a kite with a broken string. A stream of fresh blood gushed out from his mouth. His chest had caved in, and it was unknown how many bones in his body had been broken. Not only him, but many of the Yuqing Divine Nation's experts, including those at the early stage of true severing, were also injured. Even the strongest Meng Dongyang, Zhang Haoran, Tang Yuanshan, Yu Yuran, and the others were forced to retreat under the strong encirclement. Their faces were pale, and they groaned as blood flowed from the corners of their mouths. The Yuqing Divine Nation cannot withstand a single blow. The fifth prince of the Songming Divine Nation snorted softly. His eyes were like lightning as he looked around. He held the snow-light long sword in his hand, and his brocade robe hung straight on his body. Not a single corner of his robe fluttered. Kill. Since these people are courting death, then let's leave them all here. The fifth prince raised his sword to the sky and raised a sword ray that pierced the heavens and the earth. It was like a heavenly pillar that suddenly slashed down. When the sword ray fell, the void was directly cut open. The power of the law of matter surged fiercely, and it swept up a violent energy wave that filled the sky. Kill them all. Leave no one alive. After these people are dead, then we will go and kill the other disciples of the Yuqing divine nation. Kill. Let's remove the Yuqing divine nation from the divine demon battlefield. The powerhouses of Songming divine nation roared and launched a large-scale attack. They were very confident. Not only did they want to kill the people in front of them, but they also planned to kill all the other people of the Yuqing divine nation in the future, so that they would lose the qualification to compete in the divine demon battlefield. So strong. Meng Dongyang, Zhang Haoren, and the others were shocked when they saw the terrifying attacks of the other party. The overall strength of the other party was too strong, and they had thousands of people on their side. They were no match for them at all. If they were to continue fighting, many of them would perish here. What's there to be afraid of? I just can't take this lying down. Fuck the Songming divine nation. Even if I die, I'll drag a few of them down with me. We'll die with our eggs facing the sky. The people of the Yuqing divine nation were really enraged. It was not that they were not afraid of death, but they really did not want to retreat. They could not stand the mockery of the Songming divine nation. They were all proud and outstanding disciples. No one had ever looked down on them. Since the other party would not let them go so easily, they might as well fight. No matter what, even if they died, they would drag a few bastards down with them. Hee hee. What a bunch of hot-blooded people. But so what? No matter how hot-blooded they are, they can't make up for the difference in strength. Kill. Let them go to hell to show their hot-bloodedness. The people of the Songming divine nation roared and prepared for a new round of attack. I'll kill you first. The young man in the brocade robe held a long sword and attacked Teng Yuanshan. He was very strong and was not below Teng Yuanshan. He had also cultivated the law of matter to the peak of the late stage of truth-severing stage. At the same time, another late stage of truth-severing stage from the Songming divine nation rushed forward to assist the fifth prince. He was prepared to be the first to kill Teng Yuanshan. The two of them were similar in strength and were both very terrifying. Most importantly, the other late stage of truth-severing stage expert was a cultivator of the law of soul. Under the full force of the two people, Teng Yuanshan was suddenly hit by two attacks. The law of soul was invisible and released a violent wave. It was like a wave that hit his primordial spirit again and again, causing him to feel a splitting headache. Following that, the young man in the brocade robe's sword light instantly slashed vertically. Divine technique heavens, 10,000 swords holding the heavens. Slash. Teng Yuanshan endured the attack on his soul and let out a loud shout. Then, 10,000 swords of the law of matter appeared beside him. They all turned and pointed at the fifth prince. Under his control, the countless light swords moved at the same time. Each sword carried the fluctuation of the law of matter and slashed the entire world into a mess. Chi chi chi. The void was instantly destroyed, and deep cracks appeared. The light swords in the sky formed a cage and rapidly squeezed toward the center. Do you still have a chance to resist us when the two of us work together? The fifth prince laughed sinisterly. He waved his sword and released terrifying attacks, breaking all of Teng Yuanshan's law of matter. At the same time, the law of soul cultivator beside him did not relax his attacks. Under the attack of the law of soul, Teng Yuanshan's expression became more and more painful. This was not the most serious thing. The most terrifying thing was that the vitality in Teng Yuanshan's body was gradually flowing out. The life force was weakened, and his strength was greatly reduced. In just a moment, he was sweating profusely as if he had collapsed. His figure standing in the air seemed to be on the verge of collapse. Not to mention you, who is only at the peak of the late stage of truth-severing stage. Even the number one person in the Yuqing divine nation would die under the combined attack of the two of us. The fifth prince grinned evilly. His law of soul attacks were strange and unpredictable. It was definitely not something that an ordinary person could withstand. Coupled with his law of matter attacks, he could even kill gods and devils that stood in his way. It was hard to find a match for him in the realm of cultivation. Just as the young man in the brocade robe was speaking, he raised the long sword in his hand again and slashed down without hesitation. He wanted to kill Tang Yuanshan with one strike. You can go to hell first. I will send everyone from the Yuqing divine nation down to accompany you. The fifth prince's sword slashed the sky, and a huge crack appeared in the sky. It released the light of death, and the chi of gods and demons rolled out, wanting to devour people. Facing such an attack, blood flowed from the corner of Tang Yunshan's mouth and his eyes dimmed. He really felt the threat of death. If he was fighting the fifth prince alone, he would not be afraid. However, the fifth prince had joined forces with a law of soul cultivator, so he was constantly under attack. The vigorous energy in his body kept flowing out, and his vitality was also fading. Songming divine nation. How arrogant! However, just as the fifth prince swore to kill Ting Yuanshan with one strike, a cold snort suddenly sounded in the void. Then, a ray of light appeared in front of Tang Yuanshan. Accompanying it was an invisible wave that was so powerful that it made people's hair stand on end. It permeated every inch of the void and enveloped the entire battlefield. When the wave appeared, everyone felt that their strength was greatly hindered. It was as if they had fallen into a quagmire. The more they struggled, the more tired they felt. How dare you touch the people of the Yuqing divine nation? You deserve to die. Another sentence drifted out, carrying with it a biting, cold, murderous aura. It was like the coldness of winter that penetrated deep into the bones, making people's teeth chatter uncontrollably. The inexplicable ray of light exploded, and a palm shot out from it. It did not have much ferocious power. However, it was such a palm strike that landed on the fifth prince's chest without any hindrance. Bang! A muffled sound rang out, and even the surrounding space began to tremble. Under everyone's shocked gazes, the fifth prince's body was like an egg. It was shattered by the palm and exploded into a bloody mist. He couldn't be more dead. Such a scene shocked the experts on both sides. Everyone looked at the ray of light in horror. The person who attacked was too powerful. Even a peak late-stage truth-severing expert like the fifth prince was killed with one strike. He died without a complete corpse. This was too terrifying, especially on the side of the Songming divine nation. Their eyes were filled with extreme horror. Under their shocked gazes, the ray of light that suddenly appeared slowly dissipated. A purple-robed youth's figure was revealed. He had one hand behind his back. His clothes fluttered in the wind, and a domineering aura naturally spread out. Can a cultivator of the law of soul really run amok? After the purple-robed youth killed the fifth prince with one strike, he took another step forward. His figure disappeared from the spot, but at the same time, he strangely appeared beside the expert who attacked at the same time as the fifth prince. This expert wanted to escape. He sensed great danger, but as he struggled, he could only barely move his body. He could not avoid the purple-robed youth's murderous aura at all. It was another light palm strike. It seemed to have no fluctuations, but it contained the power of several laws. It instantly hit the cultivator of the law of soul. Buffed! Another muffled sound rang out. Like the fifth prince, this expert's body exploded into a bloody mist, following in his footsteps. The two consecutive strikes shocked countless people. The fifth prince is dead. Only then did a powerhouse from Songming divine nation murmur with great shock. They knew the fifth prince's strength. Even though he was only a cultivator of the law of matter, his cultivation was extremely powerful. In a normal confrontation, he would not be so easily killed. However, the reality was right in front of them. The bloody mist that the fifth prince had exploded into was still dancing in the air. The smell of blood permeated the air, and he and the cultivator of the law of soul occupied opposite sides. Both of them were killed in one strike. How is this possible? Some people looked at the purple-robed youth in disbelief. They were petrified. Who is this person? How can he be so terrifying? Some people narrowed their eyes fiercely. Their hearts raced as they wanted to know the identity of the other party. The fifth prince was killed by him, At the same time, some experts thought of more things. Their fifth prince was one of the most outstanding disciples of the Tsaming divine nation's royal family. His status was extremely high. Today, he died here. It was likely that the entire divine nation's experts would be shocked. In contrast to the thousands of people from the Tsaming divine nation, everyone from the Yuqing divine nation was pleasantly surprised when they saw the purple-robed youth's figure appear. Divine Emperor, Your Majesty. The figure that suddenly appeared was none other than Du Xiaofu, who had rushed over in a hurry. He had performed the first form of rising sun with all his might and rushed over as fast as he could. Finally, he had saved Tung Yuanshan in the midst of the chaotic battle. At the same time, the moment he appeared in the void, he spread out the absolute hegemony domain and shrouded everyone in it. Due to his sudden appearance, everyone was unprepared. Most of them were far weaker than him, so they could only be tightly bound by the law of space's power. Then, he instantly attacked and killed the fifth prince of the Tsaming divine nation and the cultivator of the law of soul. Chapter 28-24. Everyone from the Yuqing divine nation was excited. Their eyes were filled with joy as they looked at Du Xiaofu in awe and excitement. Many of them had witnessed the strength of the purple-robed young man before. Before entering the divinity and devil battlefield, he had fought against the top 100 experts of the divine nation alone. With such terrifying cultivation, killing 2 late-stage truth-severing cultivators in a single exchange was not something inconceivable to them. On the contrary, everyone thought that this was extremely normal. The divine emperor is here. Let's see how the people of the Tsaming divine nation can continue to be arrogant. His Majesty is indeed unstoppable. He has suppressed everyone. Even the fifth prince of the Tsaming divine nation was killed by the divine emperor. Who dares to challenge the divine emperor? The people of the Yuqing divine nation couldn't contain their excitement and spoke one after another. After flying far away, Fan Yushu flew back unsteadily. Although he was heavily injured, his fat face was flushed red from suffocation. However, the thousands of people from the Tsaming divine nation were confused when they heard the conversation. Divine Emperor? This young man is the divine emperor of the Yuqing divine nation? How is that possible? How can he be the divine emperor of the Yuqing divine nation? Aren't all divine emperors in the immortal realm? How did he enter the divinity and devil battlefield? Many people were confused. They hadn't recovered from the shock of seeing their fifth prince killed in an instant. They were also confused about Du Xiaofu's identity. In fact, Du Xiaofu had only taken over the position of Divine Emperor 2 days before the divinity and devil battlefield opened. Before everyone entered, the news hadn't spread in the transcendent Chong Rong heaven. Hence, the Tsaming divine nation and the other forces didn't know about it. When they heard the discussions of the people from the Yuqing divine nation, they were all confused. Normally, the cultivation of a divine emperor should be at least at the 7th or 8th sky of the immortal realm. Otherwise, how could he convince the masses? However, the purple-robed young man in front of them could enter the divinity and devil battlefield. This meant that he was only at the truth-severing realm. This was unexpected. It didn't make sense. How could a truth-severing realm be a divine nation? Didn't you say you were going to kill everyone in the Yuqing divine kingdom? Your fifth prince is dead now. Is there anyone who wants to fulfill his unfulfilled wish? Du Xiaofu looked around and glared at the people from the Tsaming divine kingdom as he coldly said. As he spoke, he flicked his wrist and put away the 2 cosmos bags. They were items that he had obtained when he killed the fifth prince and that cultivator of the law of souls. Brat, who exactly are you? You actually dared to kill our fifth prince. Do you know what the consequences are? A young expert clad in battle armor stepped out from the Tsaming divine nation's lineup. He held a large halberd in his hand as he stood in the void and asked coldly. He could not believe that the purple-robed young man was the Yuqing divine emperor, but he was fearful of his opponent's strength. Their fifth prince had died at the hands of that brat. No matter what, they had to get an explanation. If you aren't deaf, you should have heard what the brothers behind me called me. Du Xiaofu glared at the expert clad in battle armor and coldly said, As for the consequences of killing your fifth prince, I really didn't think about it. If the Tsangming divine nation has anything to say or do, I'm here to listen." As he spoke, he shook his robes and stood in the void without moving an inch. Hearing this, the young man's face immediately turned ugly. Is he really the Yuqing Divine Emperor? How is this possible? He's so young, and he's already a Divine Emperor. Which prince of the Yuqing Divine Nation was he? I've seen a few of their princes. He doesn't seem to be one of them. The people from the Tsangming Divine Nation were even more shocked. It was only now that they were certain that the brat in front of them was the Yuqing Divine Emperor. All of this could only mean one thing. The previous Divine Emperor of the Yuqing Divine Nation had abdicated and was replaced by a junior. However, some of the people who had seen the princes of the Yuqing Divine Nation could not tell which prince this purple-robed young man was. How could he become the Divine Emperor when he was only in the truth-severing stage? However, one thing was certain. No matter which prince this purple-robed young man was, his strength must be terrifying. It was very likely that he was the strongest person in the younger generation of the Yuqing Divine Nation. Otherwise, how could he become the Divine Emperor if he was mediocre? What a domineering brat. Even if you're the new Divine Emperor of the Yuqing Divine Nation, you're only in the truth-severing stage. Do you really think that the Tsangming Divine Nation can't do anything to you? After the young man in battle armor spoke, another man stepped out from the crowd. He looked straight at Du Xiaofu and asked harshly. The overall strength of the Tsangming Divine Nation was one of the strongest among the 72 Divine Nations. The Yuqing Divine Nation was only in the middle of the pack. Therefore, they were not afraid of Du Xiaofu. So what if he was the Divine Emperor? He still had to follow the rules in the Celestial Demon battlefield. However, his words caused the people from the Yuqing Divine Nation to burst into laughter. Hee, how dare you challenge our Divine Emperor? I really don't know where you get your courage from. Brat, why don't you look in the mirror and see what you look like? How dare you be so arrogant in front of our Divine Emperor? I really admire your courage. You're really not afraid of death. I have to say that you're all very brave. You're all so arrogant and think that you're the best in the world. You bastards aren't even fit to carry our Divine Emperor's shoes. Even if the best person from the Tsangming Divine Nation came here, he would still be trampled under our Divine Emperor's feet. Many people from the Yuqing Divine Nation shouted and laughed wildly as if they had heard the funniest joke in the world. They had full confidence in Du Xiaofu. Many of them had witnessed his strength with their own eyes. It could only be described as terrifying. In the previous battle in the Divine Nation, they were only competing. If it had been a life-and-death battle, Du Xiaofu would have been even more terrifying if he had not held back at all. Not to mention that the strongest among these people was only at the late stage of the truth-severing stage. Even if a truth-severing stage cultivator came, he would still be ruthlessly abused by their Divine Emperor and trampled to death. Du Xiaofu stood in the void and did not speak. He just quietly stared at the thousands of people opposite him, waiting to see what they would do. At this moment, his absolute space had been withdrawn and everyone had regained their freedom. Meng Dongyang, Zhang Haoran, Tang Yuanshan, Yu Yuran, Fan Yushu, and the other disciples of the Yuqing Divine Nation had all retreated behind him. This was because Du Xiaofu knew that if the people opposite him were prepared, his space domain would not be able to completely suppress them if they all joined forces. The people from the Tsangming Divine Nation were furious. They had never been looked down upon like this, even if the other party was a Divine Emperor. Those who came to the Divine Devil battlefield were all outstanding disciples, and their cultivations were all in the same realm. Kid, break your own hands and feet, and then come with us to the first prince to apologize. I can make the decision to let the rest of the people from the Yuqing Divine Nation go for the time being, but in the future, the Tsangming Divine Nation will definitely hunt you down. The armored youth looked at Du Xiaofu with a deep gaze and said word by word. As he spoke, he slowly raised the long spear in his hand and pointed it at Du Xiaofu. Layers of power entered the long spear, causing the entire spear to shine brightly. The power of law was vast and mighty, and the faint roar of a dragon could be heard. It was terrifying. I advise you to cherish this opportunity. If you wait until the first prince arrives, No one will be able to save you. Another late-stage, true Slayer realm expert said coldly. His body released a strong aura that surged in the void. This person came with the fifth prince, but their prince had died at his hands. If they could capture the purple-robed youth, they could give the first prince an explanation. Otherwise, he and the others would be punished accordingly. The first prince? Du Xiaofu raised his eyebrows slightly. Obviously, the first prince that this person was talking about must be an extremely powerful person. What is your first prince? In front of our emperor, you don't even dare to let out a fart. I want to see how strong the first prince is. He dares to compare himself with our divine emperor. Tell him to come out. We'll give him a good beating. The Yuqing divine kingdom side-cursed again. They didn't care about the other party at all. As long as Du Xiaofu was standing in front of them, these people had infinite confidence. They were not afraid of anyone. Good, good, good. The armored youth heard everyone's shouts and his face turned black and purple. His anger had already reached its peak. You speak so rudely. It seems that the Yuqing divine kingdom is very brave. Another late-stage true Slayer realm expert walked up and stared at Du Xiaofu. He said, if that's the case, then let us see the strength of your new divine emperor. His entire body's aura exploded as if it was boiling. It turned into waves and ferociously attacked. However, Du Xiaofu did not move in the face of such an attack. He only used his dominating domain and easily defended against it. His gaze shifted and looked into the void. He mumbled, someone else is coming. Under Du Xiaofu's perception, a group of people was flying over from afar, hurrying over. As expected, after a short while, a ray of light flashed across the sky. A large group of people appeared in front of everyone. This group of people was led by a tall, burly, and handsome young man. The young man's hair was tied up, and he wore a golden robe. He had the aura of a superior. The strength of the complete true Slayer realm? Du Xiaofu's gaze moved slightly. The young man gave him a very extraordinary feeling. At a glance, there was a profound feeling. He couldn't see through all of his cultivation. This could only mean one thing. This person was a powerhouse of the complete true Slayer realm. Eldest Prince, Your Highness. As expected, after the young man appeared, the armored youth and the others quickly surrounded him and bowed respectfully. What's going on? After the young man appeared, he sensed the bloody smell in the void and couldn't help but frown. He looked around and didn't seem to see a certain figure. His frown deepened. His gaze suddenly focused, and he asked the armored youth, where is Li Yu? Your Highness. The armored youth was stared at by the eldest prince. Instantly, cold sweat poured out of his body. He said in a trembling voice, Fifth prince has fallen. He tried his best to lower his head, not daring to look directly at the eldest prince. Previously, they were still thinking of capturing the purple-robed youth opposite them to give the eldest prince an explanation. They didn't expect him to come so quickly. What? When the eldest prince heard that, his eyes immediately shone with a fierce light. He dragged the armored youth to his side and stared into his eyes. He said, What did you just say? Say it again. As he spoke, the eldest prince emitted a ferocious aura, causing the surrounding people to tremble uncontrollably. He was too powerful. He had already cultivated the law of matter to the complete realm. When the opportunity came, he could directly break through to the immortal realm. For such a powerhouse, even if it was just a natural release of his aura, it was not something that an ordinary true severing realm cultivator could resist. Your Highness, the fifth prince, has fallen. The armored youth stammered for a moment, then gritted his teeth and said directly. After saying that, he turned his gaze and looked at Du Xiaofu. Fifth brother. Upon hearing this grievous news, the first prince was stunned. He followed the armored youth's gaze and saw Du Xiaofu opposite him. His eyes focused again. It was you who killed my fifth brother? The eldest prince gently released the armored youth's hand. He stepped into the void and walked forward step by step. Huff! After the armored youth was released, he hurriedly panted a few times, his face flushed red. The pressure he had just endured was too great. The way the eldest prince looked at him made him feel like he was being stared at by an ancient ferocious beast. That's right. Your fifth prince was indeed killed by me. Du Xiaofu didn't hesitate at all and replied directly. As soon as he finished speaking, the space behind him shook violently. Immediately, the space burst open, and Yu Qingyin, Yu Chengyao, He Jixin, Yu Chengliang, He Jibai, and the others arrived. The expressions on their faces were all stunned. What? Brother Du killed the fifth prince of Songming Divine Nation? This, as expected of Brother Du, his way of doing things is still the same as before. I'm afraid this is a little too big. It seems like it won't be easy to clean up. I'm afraid there's going to be a good show to watch. There's bound to be a bloody battle. When Yu Qingyin, He Jibai, and the others appeared, they heard Du Xiaofu's words clearly. They were all surprised, especially Yu Qingyin and Yu Chengyao. They were very clear about the strength of the Songming Divine Nation. Fighting with the other party was not a wise thing to do. Everyone had come here to rescue Fan Yushu and the others just to make peace. But who would have thought that as soon as they arrived, they would hear such explosive news? Yu Qingyin and Yu Chengyao couldn't help but smile bitterly. On the other hand, He Jixin, Yu Chengliang, He Jibai, and the others could only smile bitterly and sigh. This was Brother Du's way of doing things. Boy, you've got guts. Hearing Du Xiaofu's admission, the eldest prince of Songming Divine Nation's eyes darkened, and he spoke through clenched teeth. Step by step, he closed in on Du Xiaofu. At the same time, his aura surged, and the power of laws intertwined and spread out, filling the void and causing heaven and earth to shake. I have guts. I don't need your approval on this matter. I have no interest in trash like you. Du Xiaofu looked mockingly at the eldest prince and sneered. His disdain was obvious in his words. Hearing this, everyone present was slightly stunned. After a while, many people came back to their senses. Damn it, His Majesty's mouth is really poisonous. He doesn't use vulgarities when scolding people. The Divine Emperor should be our role model. Hee. Gutless eldest prince of Songming, what a joke. After the people from the Yuqing Divine Kingdom carefully savored Du Xiaofu's words, they all laughed exaggeratedly. Everyone was filled with admiration. On the other hand, the eldest prince of Songming Divine Nation's face turned even uglier. It was so dark that it was about to drip water. Although Du Xiaofu's words were a little profound, he was not stupid. After thinking for a while, he understood that Du Xiaofu was saying that he was a woman and a gutless person. This made him so angry that he was about to explode. He could not tolerate being looked down upon in such a way. At this time, the sadness in the eldest prince of Songming Divine Nation's heart for the death of his fifth brother had faded a little. Instead, it was filled with endless grievances. Brother Du's mouth must have been specially tempered. He Jibai shook his head and did not know whether to laugh or cry. He knew Du Xiaofu very well. In the chaos space, this guy had directly scolded the second young master of the Great Void Divine General's residence, Dai Xinming and Dai Xuanjun. He had said that the three brothers did not look alike and that they were not born from the same father. The three of them were furious. Today, he had done the same thing again. He had actually scolded the eldest prince of Songming Divine Nation as a gutless person. He Jibai would not believe that Du Xiaofu's mouth had not been specially tempered. Brat, no matter how sharp your tongue is, you can't wash away the hatred of killing my fifth brother. If I don't tear you to pieces today, then I will really be a gutless person just like you said. The eldest prince of Songming Divine Nation chased away the emotions in his heart. His eyes were fixed on Du Xiaofu like a ferocious wild wolf. He saw through the cultivation of the purple-robed youth in front of him. He was only at the peak of the late stage of the truth-severing stage. His power of law had not reached the perfect realm. How could he fight against him? Li Zheng, this is the new Divine Emperor of our Yuqing Divine Nation. If you dare to attack, aren't you afraid that our two divine nations will go to war? At this time, Yu Qingyin took a step forward and stood in front of the eldest prince of Songming Divine Nation. Divine Emperor? The eldest prince of Songming Divine Nation was stunned. He had just arrived, so he did not know Du Xiaofu's identity. However, he knew Yu Qingyin. He was the eldest prince of Yuqing Divine Nation. His words were naturally trustworthy. Humph. Is there no one else in your Yuqing divine nation? You actually let a truth-severing stage cultivator become the divine emperor. Chapter 28-25. Li Zhang couldn't help but sneer. Although he couldn't figure out the crux of the matter, he believed Yu Chengyin's words. That purple-robed youth was only at the peak of the late stage of truth-severing stage, below him. Such a person had actually become the new divine emperor of Yuqing Divine Kingdom. This situation was hard for the first prince of Tsangming Divine Kingdom to accept. And Yu Qingyin, as the first prince of Yuqing Divine Kingdom, the position of divine emperor was actually taken by an outsider. Could it be that your imperial family's disciples are lacking in fresh blood and were usurped by someone else? Most importantly, the person sitting on the divine emperor's position is only at the late stage of truth-severing stage. Li Zheng's gaze turned and looked at Yu Qingyin. His face was filled with pity, as if he felt sorry for Yu Qingyin. What he said made sense. It was a humiliation for any royal family that the imperial power of a country had fallen into the hands of another. Even if the Yuqing Divine Kingdom had some other reason, and had no choice but to replace the position of divine emperor with someone else, and had to choose someone from the late stage of truth-severing stage, as the first prince, Yu Qingyin, would definitely not pass on this responsibility. How could he fall into the hands of someone he had never seen before? Ha! Facing the first prince of Tsangming Divine Kingdom, Yu Qingyin laughed faintly and said, Imperial power is naturally as important as Mount Tai in your eyes, but in Yuqing Divine Kingdom, it belongs to the capable. Although my martial uncle Du's cultivation is at the same level as mine, his strength far surpasses mine. Why can't he sit on the divine emperor's position? There were two meanings in his words. First, as a member of Yuqing Divine Kingdom, inheritance wasn't determined by bloodline, but by strength. Whoever was stronger would sit on the divine emperor's position. In addition, Du Xiaofu was his martial uncle, so they could be considered family. There was no reason for the imperial power to be lost to another person. Is that so? Li Zheng's gaze turned cold again. According to Yu Chengyin's words, he had to reevaluate the purple-robed youth. If it was as he said, then the youth's strength was definitely terrifying. Otherwise, Yu Qingyin wouldn't have willingly acknowledged him as the divine emperor's position. If that's the case, I'd like to have a taste of your new divine emperor's skills. Today, I will tear you to shreds and avenge my fifth brother. First Prince Tsangming snorted as he suddenly soared into the sky. His entire body emitted a blazing light, as though he was a scorching sun hanging in the sky. He was not afraid of Du Xiaofu, a cultivator at the peak of the late stage of truth-severing realm. No matter how strong he was, how strong could he be? Could he be a match for him? I was waiting for you to say that. You have to do as you said. If you can't tear me to shreds today, then you're a coward. Du Xiaofu's lips curled into a sinister smile as he leaped into the air and stood in front of Li Zhang. On his body, layers upon layers of the power of laws flowed endlessly, and a vast and mighty power shook the world. Brat, you must die today. As Li Zhang spoke, a golden sword appeared in his hand. A golden dragon was engraved on the body of the longsword. It coiled around like a living creature. He injected the power from his body into the longsword, causing the longsword to let out a resounding dragon roar that pierced the 9 heavens. Seeing the longsword, many people from Tsangming Divine Kingdom were shocked. The Nirvana Dragon Sword. It's actually the Nirvana Dragon Sword. Only the Crown Prince of Tsangming Divine Kingdom is qualified to possess the Nirvana Dragon Sword. It seems that the first prince is already the Divine Emperor's successor. He even bestowed the Nirvana Dragon Sword. With the Nirvana Dragon Sword, how could that brat from Yuqing Divine Kingdom be a match for the first prince? That's a high-grade law true weapon. Its power is terrifying. Many people were discussing in a daze as they were shocked by the sword in Li Zheng's hand. A high-grade law true weapon was so easily brought into the divine demon battle boundary. With the help of the Nirvana Dragon Sword, even the saints and saintesses of the sacred grounds would not be able to compete with the first prince without the help of other powers, let alone ordinary experts. Even if the purple-robed youth was very strong, He could not be compared to the outstanding successor of the sacred grounds. That guy is the new Yuqing Divine Emperor. Could he have the imperial seal with him? Suddenly, someone thought of such a possibility. Hearing this, the others were shocked. If this guess was true, then it would be even more terrifying. The imperial seal of a divine kingdom contained the fortune of the entire divine kingdom. When it was released, its power would be much stronger than ordinary law true weapons. If that was the case, then it would not be easy for their first prince to defeat the purple-robed youth. Moreover, the other party had already confirmed the Yuqing Divine Emperor's identity. Such a guess was not without reason. No. What kind of treasure is the imperial seal of a divine kingdom? A true severing realm cultivator cannot refine it. If he tries to take it by force, he will only die. An expert pursed his lips and said, "That makes sense." The others nodded in agreement. The imperial seal was different from other items. Normally speaking, although the high-grade law true weapon in Li Zheng's hand was of a high grade, it was only a law true weapon. It could represent the crown prince's identity, but it did not contain the fortune of the divine kingdom. However, the imperial seal of a divine kingdom was different. The vast amount of spiritual force was terrifying. It was not something an ordinary person could bear. Hee. Is a high-grade law true weapon so impressive? On the Yuqing Divine Kingdom side, many people spoke. However, they were all laughing coldly. They had seen the Divine Kingdom's wealth. In the previous competition, the Divine Kingdom had offered 100 law true weapons as a reward for defeating Du Xiaofu. However, no one had been able to obtain them. If that was the case, the law true weapons that the Yuqing Divine Kingdom could offer might be of the highest grade. Why would they be afraid of a high-grade law true weapon? With the Divine Emperor's methods, why would he need to rely on other treasures to win? He could just trample Li Zheng. A young man said with a cold smile as he supported the injured Fan Yushu. He continuously channeled celestial qi into Fan Yushu's body. He knew that Du Xiaofu's treasures were also extraordinary. The 9 cauldrons had the ability to suppress the heavens and the earth. It was extremely terrifying. Moreover, did an expert who could fight 100 people together really need the help of the 9 cauldrons to defeat the crown prince of the Tsangming Divine Kingdom? "Kid, give me your life," Li Zheng shouted from high up in the sky. Qi La. His shout was like a clap of thunder. It shook the heavens and the earth and tore the sky apart. It was terrifying. In Li Zheng's hand, the golden longsword suddenly transformed into a golden dragon that soared into the sky. The huge dragon's body twisted and rolled in the void, causing the void to rumble. Roar! The dragon roared. The power of law wrapped around it tightly. It ferociously charged at Du Xiaofu. The dragon opened its mouth wide. In the process of charging forward, it swallowed the space and turned it into a terrifying black hole. A high-grade law true weapon? Du Xiaofu stood on the opposite side. His eyes moved slightly. He was silent for a moment. Then, his body surged with a monstrous light. Purple gold heavenly palace. Du Xiaofu stretched out his hand, and a broadsword appeared out of thin air. He held it in his hand. After the vigorous energy in his body was injected, the light above the purple gold heavenly palace rose into the sky and scattered into the void. The sword light was tens of thousands of feet long. Layers of light bloomed and dazzling talisman runes bloomed. There were azure dragon, white tiger, vermilion bird, and black tortoise phantoms roaring out. Ao, roar, screech, coo, the roars of dragons and tigers, the cries of birds and turtles sounded. A terrifying pressure instantly spread out, accompanied by a sword light that cut across the sky. The brilliance of the sword light poured down on the world. Under the brilliance, there was a terrifying and domineering destructive energy hidden. Heaven and earth are empty. These words came out of Du Xiaofu's mouth. He held the sword with both hands and slashed down, charging straight at the golden dragon. Qi La La, the sword light was peerless and suppressed the world. The space in the fiend god battlefield seemed to be cut in half by such a sword. The scene was terrifying. When such a sword light collided with the golden dragon, it produced a terrifying destructive storm. The sword light emitted by the purple gold heavenly palace was instantly defeated and turned into the purest law runes that circulated between heaven and earth. The golden dragon had also consumed a lot of energy. It was forcefully pushed back by Du Xiaofu's power. However, it still danced with peerless power and charged over again. Heaven and earth are empty. Faced with such a situation, Du Xiaofu used the absolute hegemony domain and firmly locked onto the golden dragon. He controlled the release of the explosive power and bound it within a certain range. At the same time, he raised the broadsword in his hand again and slashed down. Another sword light appeared, cutting through heaven and earth. It was as if it could cut through the stars and cut through the universe. It was domineering. Boom! A terrifying collision occurred once again. The void trembled violently as if it was grabbed by a huge hand and shook violently. Du Xiaofu's swordlight was destroyed once again. His entire body was pushed back by the huge force. The upper-grade law true weapon was indeed powerful. Even though Du Xiaofu used all of his strength, he was still unable to withstand it. However, his space domain still enveloped the golden dragon, causing its movements to be greatly affected. It could not fly freely. The new Yuqing Divine Emperor is so powerful. He was actually able to withstand the first prince's upper-grade law true weapon with his cultivation at the peak of the late-stage truth-severing stage. His strength is indeed extraordinary. He is indeed qualified to be the strongest person in the Yuqing Divine Kingdom. With such strength, he is probably much stronger than Yu Qingyan. The people of the Tsangming Divine Kingdom watched the battle in the sky. Some of the experts could not help but mumble. They were also shocked by Du Xiaofu's strength. A late-stage truth-severing stage cultivator was fighting with a full-fledged truth-severing stage cultivator. Furthermore, this full-fledged truth-severing stage cultivator even had an upper-grade law true weapon. The young man and the others definitely would not dare to take on such a battle. One had to admit that the new Yuqing Divine Emperor was indeed extraordinary. It was no wonder that he could make the first prince, Yu Qingyan, willingly give up the position of Divine Emperor. So what if he is strong? The gap in cultivation is definitely insurmountable. Moreover, the first prince has a mid-grade law true weapon. No matter how powerful that kid is, he will definitely not be able to last until the end. Someone in the crowd said. Perhaps in terms of strength, the purple-robed youth was very powerful. He was able to fight against a full-fledged truth-severing stage cultivator. However, under the pressure of a mid-grade law true weapon, he could only barely resist. It was impossible for him to last until the end. The 10,000 people of the Tsangming Divine Kingdom raised their eyes and looked at the sky. They wanted to see how the purple-robed youth would be defeated. On the other hand, everyone from the Yuqing Divine Kingdom was relaxed. They did not look nervous at all. His Majesty is really terrifying. With just one move, he was able to resist the attack of an expert with a mid-grade law true weapon. His Majesty's talent and heroism are hard to find. Not to mention the Tsangming Divine Kingdom. Even in the entire 33 heavens, it would be difficult to find a match for him among his peers. He hasn't even used his full strength. It was just a simple move. If he used the 8 trigrams diagram, the 9 cauldrons, or the azure dragon body, he might be able to crush the first prince of the Tsangming Divine Kingdom in a few moves. His Majesty's heroism is rare in this world. How can the first prince of the Tsangming Divine Kingdom compare to him? On the Yuqing Divine Kingdom side, many people were leisurely discussing. They had unlimited confidence in Du Xiaofu. The first prince of the Tsangming Divine Kingdom could not be compared to their Divine Emperor. The two of them were not on the same level at all. As long as the Divine Emperor used one of the 3 methods, he could easily suppress the other party. However, it was clear that His Majesty did not want to show his full strength at this time. Boy, if that's all you have, then you can only die. In the sky, Li Zheng watched Du Xiaofu use the same move again and again and could not help but say coldly, "The power of your space domain is indeed very strong, but it's obviously too weak to stop me." After he finished speaking, the power of the laws around him surged and continuously entered the golden dragon in front of him. Roar! The golden dragon opened its mouth and roared again, and its body suddenly became more majestic. The space was crushed one after another and turned into powder, turning into ashes that drifted away. As the dragon opened its maw, a terrifying suction force appeared, as if it wanted to swallow the heavens and swallow the earth. Du Xiaofu's space domain began to twist and distort under this strength. It began to tear apart inch by inch, emitting cracking sounds. In just a moment, the true power of the mid-grade law true weapon erupted, and the entire domineering domain was instantly torn to pieces. Is that so? Since you're in such a hurry to be a coward, then I'll fulfill your wish. Du Xiaofu snorted coldly, then flipped his wrist and put away the purple-gold heavenly palace. At the same time, he simply removed the shattered space domain and watched as the golden dragon rushed over. Roar! Du Xiaofu suddenly opened his mouth and let out an earth-shattering dragon roar. Accompanied by this dragon roar, the stars in the sky moved and the clouds changed. The earth was broken by the roar, and waves like the tide surged, layer upon layer. In an instant, the figure of an azure dragon appeared, occupying the void domineeringly, facing the golden dragon formed by the mid-grade law true weapon of the Tsangming Divine Kingdom's crown prince. What kind of technique is this? In the Tsangming Divine Kingdom's camp, everyone was stunned and confused. They were very puzzled. How could a human turn into an azure dragon? The Divine Emperor has used one of his strongest techniques. Let's see how arrogant Li Zheng can be now. In the Yuqing Divine Kingdom, many people's eyes twitched as they murmured. To many experts, they had seen Du Xiaofu's technique, so they knew how powerful it was. The azure dragon's body's defensive power was so formidable that it could withstand the joint attack of 100 people. It can be like this? Li Zheng's eyes trembled as he looked at the azure dragon rolling in the sky in surprise. From the azure dragon's body, it wasn't difficult for him to feel the terrifying power. It wasn't any weaker than his mid-grade law true weapon. Facing such an azure dragon, Li Zheng didn't dare to underestimate it. Kill. Du Xiaofu's dragon body twisted, his giant dragon head held high as he dashed forward, attacking the golden dragon in an instant. The other party was strong with the help of the law true weapon. However, no matter how strong he was, he couldn't be stronger than the first sky of immortal realm expert of the sky-swallowing demonic wolf clan. As soon as his shout fell, the two gigantic dragons instantly came into contact with each other, causing a violent collision. Rumble, sizzle, layers of vibrations and whistles rolled out, and the void was instantly stirred into a mess. In front of everyone's frightened eyes, the two giant dragons tangled with each other. The power that could destroy the sky surged, and the void became a mess as if it was about to turn into chaos. Such might cause the hearts of all the experts present to tremble. It wasn't the power that an ordinary true severing realm expert could release. No matter if it was the golden dragon from the mid-grade law true weapon or the azure dragon from the purple-robed young man, they were all intimidating. Under their gazes, pieces of the sky disappeared, and the dark red sky was stirred into chaos. In the middle of it all, a vague blood rain was falling from the sky. Everyone could clearly see that numerous cracks had appeared on the body of the azure dragon, and they were crisscrossing as they meandered and dispersed. The golden dragon next to it also exploded into a dazzling light rain. The energy overflowed, and the light on the dragon's body dimmed a lot. Ugh! On the other side, the first prince of Tsangming God Nation, Li Zheng, groaned. His face turned paler as the two giant dragons collided. It was obvious that he was under great pressure. He controlled the law true weapon to attack. Although he didn't fight personally, he was still affected by the terrifying impact, and he was injured step by step. What a terrifying battle. Both of them are very strong. Whoever takes a breath first will be defeated. I wonder who will be able to last until the end. Your Highness, you must hold on and kill the Yuqing Divine Emperor. In the Tsangming God Nation's formation, many people gulped as they were shocked by the terrifying battle in the sky. It was only now that they truly realized how strong the new deity emperor of the Yuqing Divine Kingdom was. One should know that he was fighting the first prince with the strength of a late-stage true severing realm expert, and the first prince was using a mid-grade law true weapon. Chapter 28-26. If it was an ordinary person who went up to fight the first prince, they would have died in the mouth of the golden dragon. However, the purple-robed youth was actually able to hold on until now, and there were no signs of him falling into a disadvantageous position. Such terrifying strength caused everyone from the Sangming Divine Kingdom to become serious. Anyone could see that the two of them were fighting for a breath. Whoever could not hold on and retreated first would be defeated one step at a time until they were directly crushed. However, on the other side, the people from the Yuqing Divine Kingdom did not think so at all. Many of them even began to cross their arms, wanting to see how the first prince of the Sangming Divine Kingdom would be tyrannized by their own divine emperor. Ao ao, rumble. In the sky, the intense battle was still ongoing. The two long dragons moved in the air and fiercely collided again and again. The two giant tails carried with them the power to destroy the heavens and earth as they ruthlessly smashed together, producing a terrifying sound of collision. Dragon scales flew and blood rained down. A large number of law marks were shattered, and the void was shaken into a state of chaos. This kind of battle was too terrifying. The sky lost its light, the world lost its color, and the universe was overturned. With every contact, Li Zheng's face darkened bit by bit. His mind was implicated, and blood gushed out from the corner of his mouth. How can he be so strong? His eyes were filled with shock, shocked by Du Xiaofu's strength. His cultivation was clearly far above his opponent's, and he even had a high-grade law true weapon in his hand, but now they were only tied. Worry arose in his heart. If the purple-robed youth's azure dragon body lasted a little longer, he was afraid that he would not be able to hold on. Under the terrifying vibration, Li Zheng was already severely injured. True severing stage, coupled with a high-grade law true weapon, seems to be nothing more than this. In the sky, Du Xiaofu's azure dragon body opened its mouth slightly and said such a sentence. On his body, dragon scales peeled off, and purple-gold blood flowed. However, the power emitted from his body did not weaken at all. Instead, it was becoming more and more intense. The second transformation of the cyan spirit armor had the most abnormal defensive power. After refining the cyan dragon blood essence, this ability had increased by leaps and bounds. In addition, although his body was injured time and time again, under the effect of the indestructible Xian body, his recovery was extremely fast. If that's all you've got, then you're definitely going to get that woman. Du Xiaofu glanced at the crown prince of Sangming Divine Nation in front of him. After that, he opened his mouth and roared, and he emitted a dragon roar that shook the heavens and the earth. It was like it could pierce through metal and split rocks, and it caused the souls of everyone present to be unable to refrain from trembling fiercely. A world-destroying storm accompanied the dragon's roar, sweeping through the heavens and the earth, sweeping in all directions. Du Xiaofu's azure dragon body soared into the air. At the same time, his entire body glowed with rainbow light, and the power of the law of matter, which was approaching perfection, surged out ferociously. In addition, his absolute dominance domain spread out like an invisible tide, enveloping the golden dragon opposite him. The power of the two laws intertwined with each other, brazenly suppressing the golden dragon. Ugh, such a huge pressure once again caused Li Zheng's face to turn pale. He let out a muffled groan from his throat, and his aura instantly withered a little. I admit that you have some strength, but you have to know that I'm at the perfection stage of true severing, and I control the complete law of matter. If you want to defeat me, don't even think about it. The crown prince of Sangming Divine Nation raised his sleeve to wipe the blood from the corner of his mouth, and his eyes suddenly became extremely fierce. He looked at the azure dragon opposite him and said through gritted teeth. He had a new understanding of the purple-robed youth's strength, but he was not particularly afraid. After all, his cultivation was much stronger than his opponent's, and he was one small realm higher. After he shouted angrily, he did not say anything else and slowly closed his eyes. Then, rays of light began to rise from his body. They were colorful and full of energy. The complete law of matter fluctuated and evolved, weaving into an independent embryonic form of an independent world. The myriad phenomena of matter in the boundless universe were constantly evolving within it. When all of this power was injected into the golden dragon's body, the entire dragon-shaped body suddenly expanded again, becoming more solid, and the aura on its body also increased explosively. Kill. Du Xiaofu roared and moved with the power of two laws. It was as if he had evolved an independent world, and he directly rushed towards the golden dragon formed by the high-grade law true weapon. Although such an independent world looked a little illusory, it was far inferior to the one that Li Zhang had built. However, from another point of view, it seemed more meaningful and closer to reality. Only in the invisible space, there were spatial patterns flipping, and relatively speaking, it was more like a real world. Boom, boom, boom. Du Xiaofu's world form moved, crushing the void and moving across the sky. Roar, roar, roar. On the opposite side, the golden dragon that had been injected with terrifying power roared again and again, shaking the sky. Both of them carried unparalleled might as they brazenly collided once again. Buzz. This time, when the two forces collided, there was no total explosion. Instead, a terrifying buzzing sound was produced. Layers of ripples that could be seen with the naked eye surged out in the void. When they reached the peak, they shattered one by one. The entire void, along with the earth, was instantly flipped upside down. Oh no! Retreat quickly. This power is too strong. Protect yourselves. On the periphery, the people from the Yuqing Divine Kingdom and the Tsaming Divine Kingdom exclaimed in unison. They were far enough away from the battlefield, but they did not expect that this collision would produce such a huge power, so they did not dare to let down their guard. Amidst the loud roars, no one dared to delay and instantly fled into the distance, away from where Du Xiaofu and Li Zhang were. These two are too strong, and the eldest prince of the Tsaming Divine Kingdom is also extraordinary. In the Yuqing Divine Kingdom's camp, Fatty Fan Yushu's complexion recovered a lot under the care of the people around him. He looked at the battle over there and could not help but mutter. His entire person seemed to be a little sluggish. He and Du Xiaofu had known each other in the origin space, but now the other party had left him too far behind, and the gap between the two of them was getting bigger and bigger. Fan Yushu asked himself, if he went up, no matter who it was, he would die without a burial place. In terms of talent, our Divine Emperor is much more abnormal. Beside him, Teng Yuanshan said in a daze, watching the battle over there with his eyes wide open. As he learned more about Du Xiaofu, he also knew that the other party had cultivated for less than 200 years. It took him nearly 3,000 years to reach the peak of the late stage of the truth-severing stage. In comparison, he was simply a piece of trash. We are not worth mentioning in front of the Divine Emperor. Although the eldest prince of the Tsaming Divine Kingdom's cultivation is slightly stronger than us, in terms of talent, he is far from being comparable to the Divine Emperor. Beside Teng Yuanshan, Zhang Haoran from the War Profound Sect smiled bitterly and shook his head with a sigh. Less than 200 years, Meng Dongyang, Yu Yuran, Yu Qingyin, Yu Qingyao, and the others could not help but smile bitterly. On the side of the Tsangming Divine Kingdom, everyone looked at the sky in shock, and all of them had a look of disbelief. How can the Yuqing Divine Emperor be so terrifying? His cultivation is only at the peak of the late stage of the truth-severing stage. Unbelievable! The eldest prince's cultivation is so terrifying that it won't take long for him to reach the immortal realm, but he can't suppress him. I'm afraid there will be a tough battle. The eldest prince has not used his full strength, but it won't be easy for him to win. In the midst of the shock, many people were talking, but as they spoke, they stared unblinkingly at the battle in the sky. In the distant sky, the battle was still going on. After the two enormous dragons collided, a world-destroying storm was set off, and then they both retreated. Roar, the golden dragon roared, and its roar broke the sky, shaking heaven and earth. Its body kept rolling in the sky, smashing pieces of the sky, and the light on the dragon's body dimmed a lot. Roar Du Xiaofu also let out a long roar, and the dragon's scales all over his body cracked, his skin and flesh rolled, and blood splattered everywhere. Both of them were heavily injured, and this battle was too fierce. High-grade law true weapon? It is indeed a good item, but it would be a waste to leave it in your hands. After the Azure Dragon's body retreated, Du Xiaofu couldn't help but look at the giant golden dragon opposite him and say so. He waved his dragon claws lightly, and with a few swishes, 9 black shadows rushed out from his body and surrounded the golden dragon. After the 9 black shadows surrounded the golden dragon, they suddenly stopped and revealed the appearance of 9 cauldrons, standing in 9 directions and suppressing the void. These were the 9 purple lightning profound cauldrons, and they were summoned by Du Xiaofu. What are these things? The appearance of the 9 lightning profound cauldrons made the eldest prince of the Tsangming Divine Kingdom, Li Zheng, even more shocked. On each of the large cauldrons, torrential purple lightning continuously poured out, hanging in the air like a waterfall. The aura released was not inferior to his high-grade law true weapon, Nirvana Dragon Sword. Obviously, each of the 9 cauldrons was not inferior to his Nirvana Dragon Sword. This was terrifying. He thought that with a high-grade law true weapon, he could instantly crush the purple-robed youth. But now, it seemed that he had really underestimated the other party. From today onwards, this high-grade true treasure of yours belongs to me. Du Xiaofu's shout came from the opposite side. His azure dragon body flashed from the spot and charged towards the golden dragon. At the same time, the 9 purple lightning profound cauldrons trembled under his control, like 9 towering mountains moving horizontally, pressing towards the golden dragon. Roar! Under the pressure of the 9 cauldrons, the golden dragon let out an earth-shaking roar. The pressure released by the 9 cauldrons made it difficult for it to struggle. Rumble! A divine lightning cauldron flew across the sky and smashed into the golden dragon's head. Clang! The sound of metal clashing rang out. A huge depression was smashed into the golden dragon's head, and its body tumbled out. Rumble! Immediately after, another divine lightning cauldron followed closely behind, chasing after it and suddenly smashing into the center of the golden dragon's body. The dragon's scales there were shattered and fell piece by piece, finally shattering into law energy. Rumble! Just as the golden dragon was forcefully stabilizing its body, the third divine lightning cauldron arrived. Roar! The golden dragon's mouth constantly let out loud roars, shaking the heads of the people in the distance, causing their souls to shake. The first prince of Tsangming Divine Kingdom was the first to bear the brunt of the impact. All the force of the impact was transmitted to his body through the mental connection between him and the golden dragon. Puffed! When the 5th purple lightning profound cauldron smashed into the golden dragon's body, Li Zheng suddenly spat out a mouthful of blood, and his face became increasingly gloomy. Suppress for me! Du Xiaofu shouted loudly, and the azure dragon's body moved. The law of matter and the law of space interweaved together, forming a huge net of laws that enveloped the golden dragon. That was a high-grade law true artifact. If he could subdue it, he would be able to seize the Nirvana Dragon Sword. In any case, he had already formed a grudge with the Tsangming Divine Kingdom. He naturally wouldn't let go of such a benefit. How could he be so strong? Li Zheng's eyes were filled with shock, and the shock in his heart was even greater. Those 9 cauldrons were too terrifying. They actually forced his Nirvana Dragon Sword to retreat step by step. His heart was filled with endless fear, and he finally knew fear. The purple-robed youth's strength was actually so powerful that he was tightly suppressing a true severing perfection stage powerhouse like him. If this continued, it would be difficult for him to keep his high-grade law true artifact. Du Xiaofu's azure dragon's body also pounced over. The power of the law of matter surged, and his killing intent soared into the sky. The dual power of laws, coupled with Du Xiaofu's azure dragon's body, caused the golden dragon formed from the high-grade law true artifact to churn non-stop. In addition, the 9 divine lightning cauldrons danced wildly, carrying a terrifying rumbling sound as they brazenly attacked. Don't even think about taking my Nirvana Dragon Sword. Li Zheng's handsome face became extremely ferocious. He clenched his teeth tightly and unleashed all of his power, pouring it all into the golden dragon. The huge dragon's body stirred violently in the void, trying to break free from the spatial domain. However, Under Du Xiaofu's full suppression, the golden dragon was unable to make any large movements and was tightly bound. Rumble, a terrifying collision occurred, and a rumbling sound like rolling thunder erupted. On the golden dragon's body, layer after layer of law power was peeled off and shattered. Under this terrifying surge of power, the golden dragon struggled violently, but it was unable to escape. It was firmly suppressed by Du Xiaofu. The 9 divine lightning cauldrons, coupled with Du Xiaofu's azure dragon's body, and the dual power of laws, were simply too terrifying. A golden dragon formed from a high-grade law true artifact was suppressed on the spot just like that. Suppress. Du Xiaofu's huge azure dragon's eyes narrowed as he suddenly shouted. He swung out one of his dragon claws, which circulated with the dual power of laws, and directly grabbed at the golden dragon. Under the combined suppression of several forces, the golden dragon remained motionless in the void, and the layers of energy on its body exploded and shattered. Then, with a swoosh, the entire dragon shape transformed back into the appearance of the golden sword. It hummed and vibrated in the void, as if it had submitted to Du Xiaofu's power and was about to be grabbed by him. This scene caused Li Zheng to almost go crazy. "Get out of my way." Seeing that Du Xiaofu's dragon claws were about to touch his Nirvana dragon sword, the eyes of the Songming Divine Kingdom's crown prince instantly turned crimson red. He roared continuously and used all of his strength to channel it into the Nirvana dragon sword, wanting to resist again. However, it was all in vain. No matter what he did, he was firmly suppressed by Du Xiaofu. The Azure Dragon's claw also touched the Nirvana dragon sword step by step and grasped it in the dragon claws. Everyone who was watching the battle from afar was stunned by such a scene, especially the people of the Songming Divine Kingdom. Everyone was shocked by this scene. The Nirvana dragon sword is about to be taken away. That Yuqing Divine Emperor's strength is too terrifying. Is he really at the true Severing Realm? Why does he look like an immortal realm expert with such power? His azure dragon body and the 9 cauldrons are too terrifying. They're definitely not something an ordinary person can use. The Nirvana dragon sword represents the supreme position of the crown prince of the Songming Divine Kingdom. If it's lost here, the Nirvana dragon sword can't be lost. Even the crown prince can't bear such a price. Tens of thousands of people watched the battle nervously as voices of discussion filled the air. They were all screaming in their hearts, hoping that their crown prince could suppress the Yuqing Divine Emperor and regain control of the Nirvana dragon sword. It represented the supreme inheritance of the entire Divine Kingdom. It couldn't be lost. I've said it before. What bullshit crown prince? He's not even fit to carry the shoes of our Divine Emperor. Isn't that right? Great. Now they can't even keep the Nirvana dragon sword. Our Emperor is going to get another treasure. The Nirvana dragon sword is something that only the crown prince can possess. It also represents imperial power. If it's taken by the Divine Emperor, the Songming Divine Kingdom's face will be slapped swollen. Tisk tsk, that's an upper-grade true treasure of laws. I've never seen one before. When the Divine Emperor gets it, I'll definitely ask him to let me touch it properly. On the Yuqing Divine Kingdom side, everyone was beaming with joy. Regarding Du Xiaofu's strength, they had long been aware in their hearts. Most importantly, many people knew that the strength that the Divine Emperor had displayed was not all, especially for Yu Chengyan, Yu Chengyao, and the others. They had heard from their imperial ancestor, Du Xiaofu's master, Yu Yuqian, that the guy had killed a first sky of immortal realm expert in the Qian Su Jinghua heaven. No matter what kind of tricks Du Xiaofu used in that battle, it was enough to shock everyone if this matter were to spread out. Chapter 28-27. At the very least, no one in the same generation in the 33 heavens could do what Du Xiaofu did with his peak late-stage truth-severing cultivation. In comparison, it was not inconceivable for that guy to easily suppress the Songming Crown Prince, who was at the great circle of truth-severing cultivation. Under everyone's gaze, Du Xiaofu's dragon claw grabbed the Nirvana dragon sword. The sword trembled non-stop. Under Li Zheng's control, it wanted to break free from the shackles, but it could not shake off Du Xiaofu's suppression. It was firmly bound there. "Give me back my Nirvana dragon sword." The crown prince of Tsangming Divine Nation went crazy. He rushed toward Du Xiaofu. In Tsangming Divine Nation, the Nirvana dragon sword was the strongest treasure besides the imperial seal. If it was taken away by that kid, he would not be able to explain it to his father. In addition, the sword represented his identity as the crown prince. He could not lose it. Get lost. Du Xiaofu turned his dragon head and glared at Li Zheng with his huge dragon eyes. Then, he swung his dragon tail and whipped Li Zheng's body. The second transformation of the green spirit armor was extremely terrifying. With a sweep of the dragon's tail, Li Zheng was instantly sent flying. His entire body flew in a straight line and crashed into a mountain 100,000 miles away. He smashed through the mountain range and turned it into stone powder that drifted in the air. After losing his high-grade Law True artifact, Li Zheng was even less of a match for Du Xiaofu. Moreover, he had suffered heavy injuries at this time. With a single strike, he was ruthlessly sent flying away without any strength to resist. A high-grade Law True weapon. Du Xiaofu did not continue to pay attention to Li Zheng. His azure dragon body flashed and transformed into his true form. His purple robe fluttered in the wind. Du Xiaofu controlled the 9 purple thunder profound cauldrons to suppress the Nirvana dragon sword. Then, he opened up the ancient, desolate space and swallowed the entire sword. High-grade Law True treasures were different from ordinary objects. They had very strong artifact souls. If one did not forcibly refine them, they would find their own master. If Du Xiaofu wanted to refine the Nirvana dragon sword with ordinary methods, it would definitely take a long time. It was definitely not something that could be done overnight. Therefore, he could only place it in the desolate ancient space and use the special order of the ancient space to suppress it to prevent it from causing any trouble. When he had the time in the future, he would slowly refine it. The mighty Shen Huang. Suddenly, someone from the Yuqing Divine Kingdom's crowd let out a strange cry. Such a strange howl was like a stone that caused 1,000 ripples, causing everyone to shout wildly. His Majesty is valiant, suppressing the world. Prince Tsangming can't even withstand a single blow. The Divine Emperor's cultivation is unparalleled, crushing all of his peers. His Majesty's divine might is unfathomable. He suppressed Prince Tsangming like a dog. Many people were shouting excitedly. They were even happier than if they had one. They were really excited, especially Fan Yushu and the others who had the Black Soulwood stolen from them by the 5th prince of the Tsangming Divine Kingdom. They all felt that they had vented their anger. Isn't your Tsangming Divine Kingdom very awesome? Isn't it ranked in the top 10? Isn't it much stronger than the Yuqing Divine Kingdom? What about now? Look at the result. The first prince of the true Severing Perfection stage was beaten up by our Divine Emperor, who was at the peak of the late stage of the true Severing Perfection stage. He can't even let out a fart. If it weren't for that high-grade Law True treasure, that first Prince Li Zheng wouldn't have been able to withstand a single blow. He wouldn't even have the qualifications to fight in front of His Majesty. Look at the result. The Law True treasure fell into His Majesty's hands in the end. The Tsangming Divine Kingdom's treasure became our Yuqing Divine Kingdom's. Heh, this is really a huge irony. The Nirvana Dragon Sword was really taken away by that brat. Why is it like this? How can his strength be so terrifying? Even the first prince can't suppress him. Who else in the Fiend God Battle Realm can suppress him? Everyone from the Tsangming Divine Kingdom was stunned. They stood there in shock, staring blankly at the purple-robed youth in the distance. They watched helplessly as he took the Nirvana Dragon Sword away. Waves of shock surged in their hearts. They couldn't use words to describe their feelings at this moment. They only felt terrible. Some people began to feel dejected. It turned out that there was someone in the younger generation who was so much stronger than them. It was really hard to imagine. If this person came from one of the strongest holy lands, it would be easier for them to accept. But he was just someone from the Yuqing Divine Kingdom. First Prince. After a while, the armored youth in the camp suddenly trembled. He quickly turned his gaze to the distance, looking at the overturned mountain range 100,000 miles away. It had been a long time since the first Prince Li Zheng was sent flying, But there was still no movement. Quickly go check on the first prince. Some experts immediately became alert. They quickly tore through space and flew over to check on Li Zhang's situation. Let's go. Du Xiaofu glanced indifferently at the Tsaming Divine Kingdom's lineup, then waved his hand and said to the people from the Yuqing Divine Kingdom, Fan Yushu, Meng Dongyang, Zhang Haoran, Tang Yuanshan, Yu Yuran, and the others looked at each other with surprise in their eyes. But they didn't say anything and followed Du Xiaofu into the distance. Tell your first prince that he's a coward. Before leaving, Fatty Fan Yushu suddenly raised his middle finger and gestured at the people from the Tsaming Divine Kingdom. He didn't hide the ridicule on his face. The faces of the people from the Tsaming Divine Kingdom instantly turned ashen. This was a naked humiliation, a slap to their faces. However, no one said anything about this, and no one stopped Du Xiaofu and the others from leaving. Under their gazes, the other party's group instantly disappeared into the distance. Du Xiaofu came suddenly and left very quickly, without the slightest bit of hesitation. Why didn't the Divine Emperor pursue the victory and beat the people from the Tsaming Divine Kingdom to a pulp? When tearing through space, someone was puzzled and asked the experts next to him. Yes, with the strength of the Divine Emperor, he can suppress many of their experts alone. We have a chance to beat them into a dead dog. Someone was also puzzled and echoed. Many people heard this and nodded. Obviously, this was also the question in their hearts. What do you know? At this moment, an expert glared fiercely at everyone, and then he put on an unfathomable expression and said, The Divine Emperor has his own reasons for doing things. Why don't all of you use your brains and think about it? The Tsaming Divine Kingdom's overall strength is so strong. If we really engage in a large-scale battle, then even if the Divine Emperor's might can win in the end, wouldn't we suffer heavy losses? That's true. Everyone nodded their heads to show their approval. Of course, they knew the strength of the Tsaming Divine Kingdom. The overall strength of the Tsaming Divine Kingdom was definitely more terrifying than their side. Otherwise, the Ebony Soul would not have been so easily snatched away by the fifth prince. Seeing everyone nodding, the person who had shouted before smiled slyly and said, We've made a big profit this time. Not only did we take back the Ebony Soul Wood, but the Nirvana Dragon Sword of the Tsaming Divine Kingdom has also fallen into the hands of the Divine Emperor. If we don't leave after getting such benefits, are we waiting for the other forces to hear the news and come to snatch it? As he spoke, he rolled his eyes at the others and crossed his arms proudly, as if he had seen through Du Xiaofu's thoughts. However, these words made sense in the ears of the others. The 35 Holy Lands and the other 70 Divine Kingdoms were very strong. If someone heard the news and rushed over, it would likely cause a lot of trouble. It was better to leave immediately. If His Majesty had time to refine the Nirvana Dragon Sword, he would be even stronger. On the other side, with the help of the armored youth and the others, Li Zhang returned to the Tsaming Divine Kingdom's camp. At this time, he looked dispirited and his aura was weak. His face was covered in blood, and there was a huge dent in his chest. The tall crown on his head had fallen off and was nowhere to be seen. His hair was disheveled, and he was in a sorry state. The armored youth and the others kept injecting celestial qi into Li Zhang's body. At the same time, they took out a lot of scarlet nether flowers and other things to help him recover some strength. Your Highness, how are you? The armored youth looked at Li Zhang and asked with concern. The impression that the first prince gave him was that he was an extremely domineering person. His cultivation was extremely profound, and his every move was filled with endless majesty. Even a single glance from him was extremely oppressive. When had he ever revealed such an unbearable state? It could be said that today, the image of the first prince in the armored youth's heart had completely collapsed. But after all, this was the first prince of a divine kingdom. In the Fiend God battlefield, they had to obey his orders. Yuqing Divine Emperor, Li Zhang ignored the armored youth's question. After recovering some strength, his face became ferocious again, and his body emitted a strong, murderous aura. He broke free from the support of the people around him and slowly took 2 steps in the void. His gaze was fixed on the boundless space. That was the direction where Du Xiaofu had last left. You are really strong. Li Zhang spoke again. He continued to walk forward. However, I will definitely make you pay for what you did today. The first prince suddenly gritted his teeth and made a GGG sound. His expression became terrifying, as if he was going to devour someone. You killed my fifth brother and stole my Nirvana dragon. I will make you pay for these two things one by one. I will make you bleed to death bit by bit. None of you from the Yuqing Divine Kingdom can think of leaving the Fiend God battlefield alive. Li Zhang clenched his fists. His eyes were ferocious, like a wolf that had been humiliated endlessly. He looked at the void and wanted to use his eyes to see through everything. He wanted to pierce the purple-robed youth's body and turn him into a bloody pulp. Grand. The armored young man and the others wanted to say something, but as soon as they opened their mouths, they swallowed their words back into their stomachs, not saying anything else. They wanted to persuade the first prince, but they couldn't. After all, the first prince had lost the Nirvana Dragon Sword, and the fifth prince had died at the hands of the Yuqing Divine Emperor. This kind of hatred was too great. Everyone, listen up. Li Zhang suddenly retracted his gaze and looked behind him. He said hatefully, "From today onwards, we will fight to the death with the Yuqing Divine Kingdom." First prince, this. The armored youth stepped forward and said hurriedly. His shock was no small matter. He was truly frightened by Li Zhang's words. Back then, the Yuqing Divine Kingdom, which was not famous, had sent out thousands of immortal realm experts to destroy the Zhuling sacred ground. This news had spread throughout the entire Supreme Chong-Rong heaven and shocked everyone. At this moment, not only the Songming Divine Kingdom, but even the 35 sacred grounds wouldn't dare to kill the disciples of the Yuqing Divine Kingdom. Was the first prince muddle-headed? How could he make such a decision? It must be known that this was not an ordinary battle. They had accompanied the fifth prince earlier and had only injured some of the other party's people. Even though the fifth prince had shouted that he wanted to kill all of them, he would at most kill a few of them for show. It was impossible for him to truly kill all of them. Otherwise, once they left the Fiend God battlefield, the hatred would be huge. The Songming Divine Kingdom was much weaker than the Zhuling sacred ground. They wouldn't even be able to crush the Yuqing Divine Kingdom with a single finger. Speaking of which, with the new Yuqing Divine Emperor around, could they really kill them all? The armored youth's heart was pounding. He didn't dare to imagine such a scene. He was about to speak, but he was interrupted by Li Zhang's ferocious gaze. Phew! After glaring at the armored youth, the first prince of the Songming Divine Kingdom slowly turned his head and let out a long sigh. He closed his eyes and calmed himself down after a long while. Then, he started pacing in the void and said, I know that the Yuqing Divine Kingdom is very strong. It won't be easy to destroy them. As he pondered, he said, in the Fiend God battlefield, as long as the battles are under control, it won't matter even if there are some grudges. This is a battle between the younger generation. Life and death are up to fate. It won't cause a huge mess, and it won't lead to a war between the two divine kingdoms. Li Zhang's face became even more ferocious as he continued speaking. However, this time, he was extremely rational. He said, some people have special identities and can't be touched. However, the deaths of the other small fries are insignificant. It won't be enough to vent the hatred in my heart. So, I'll say it again. Every single one of them must die in the Fiend God battlefield. If we fight against the Yuqing Divine Kingdom, even if we win, we will suffer heavy losses. This is not the result I want. Moreover, once we leave the Fiend God battlefield, the Yuqing Divine Kingdom will be a huge threat to the Songming Divine Kingdom. As the first prince spoke, he let out a sigh of relief. He said, but what if all of this is the work of many sacred lands and divine kingdoms? After he finished speaking, he looked at the armored youth and the others with a burning gaze, as if he was waiting for their answer. Your Highness, you mean to say? The armored youth and the others were puzzled and asked in confusion. If many sacred lands and divine kingdoms worked together to destroy the Yuqing Divine Kingdom, the result was obvious. None of the opponents who came to the Fiend God battlefield would be able to leave alive. At the same time, even if they returned to the outside world, the Yuqing Divine Kingdom would not be able to fight against so many factions at the same time. Even if a small divine kingdom had the power to destroy the extreme spirit sacred ground, How could it fight against so many sacred lands and divine kingdoms working together? One had to admit that the first prince's suggestion was very plausible. However, the problem was, why would the 35 sacred lands and the other 70 divine kingdoms listen to the orders of the Tsaming divine kingdom and attack the Yuqing divine kingdom? As if he could read everyone's minds, Li Zheng suddenly laughed coldly and said, "Isn't the new Yuqing divine emperor very strong? Didn't they all admire him very much? If that's the case, let's make that kid even more famous. It would be best if his name alone could suppress the 9 heavens and 10 earths and suppress the blue sky and yellow spring. Also, that kid has many tricks up his sleeves and is quite strong. I want to see his ultimate strength and see how he compares to the saints and saintesses of the 35 sacred lands. I want to see who is stronger." The first prince couldn't help but laugh coldly and grit his teeth. "First prince, are you trying to say that we should promote the Yuqing divine kingdom and their divine emperor?" Hearing Li Zheng's words, the armored young man and the others immediately understood. The first prince's intention was clear. He wanted to roast the Yuqing divine emperor on the fire and push him to the front of the storm. In the Fiend Celestial battlefield, there were many successors of the major factions, especially the saints and saintesses. They were all experts who could suppress an entire region. If these people were pushed to the opposite side of the Yuqing divine emperor, the result would be obvious. That kid would become the target of everyone. This was a scheme to kill someone with a borrowed knife. "I can't kill you with my own hands, but since you've provoked me, don't blame me for finding some entertainment for you. It'll save you from being bored in the Fiend Celestial battlefield. Yuqing divine emperor. From now on, you'll be the number 1 of your generation. You'll be invincible in the truth-severing stage. You'll crush all the saints and saintesses. Even the younger generation of the 33 heavens is nothing to you." The first prince's eyes were extremely vicious. He looked into the void and muttered, "What I want to see is how you'll die in the hands of the saints and saintesses. I'm really looking forward to seeing how you'll be crushed to death. And when that happens, how will the Yuqing divine kingdom be able to fight against the other factions?" Ha 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 ha. The more he thought about it, the more excited he became. In the end, he couldn't help but laugh out loud. Many factions had joined hands and killed all the young experts of the Yuqing divine kingdom in the celestial demon battlefield realm. Moreover, their deity emperor had also fallen. When the time came for them to leave the celestial demon battlefield realm, would the Yuqing divine kingdom declare war on the other factions, or would they just swallow their anger and suffer in silence? Just the thought of such an outcome filled him with anticipation. After making the final decision, Li Zheng laughed wildly for a while. He didn't hesitate anymore and quickly passed down the order for everyone from the Tsaming divine kingdom to move quickly. They began to spread some words in the Fiend Celestial battlefield.